Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the April meeting of the Board of Architectural Review. We do have a piece of business to attend to before we start the BAR portion. We need to have a brief discussion on some changes to the occupancy of 80 Main Street. I don't expect that to be very long, but we do need to reopen that to have a better understanding. So
I can't hear you.
I'll try harder, but you keep waving and let me know when I don't do well back there. We have microphones for people who aren't here, but we don't have anything for the room. Okay, so 80 Main Street, who's here to speak to that tonight?
Good evening. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Guido Subatovsky. I'm the managing member with Hudson EFT. We're the owners of the property at 80 Main Street here in Ossining. So as you guys all recall, back in, I guess it was 2011, we came to the project for a 25-unit development, of which it was approved, intended for the occupancy of seniors, those age 55 and older. In 2014, we came back to the board to make a modification to the project from fully affordable to market rate, thereby where we had 22 market rate units and 3 affordable units as per the village code and the affordable housing ordinance. At that time, one of the clarifications that we wanted to make, and our intention at all times, was to maintain a preference and target market for those seniors, and seniors defined as those age 55 and older. We're currently going through lease up, and we've had some back and forth with the the village and the planner and corporate council, and we were asked if we can come and provide the clarification and also answer any questions with respect to our intention to market with a preference to seniors, those age 55 and older. And when I say preference, to define, and I can give you a little bit of clarity and detail as to how we run our marketing process, but our intention is to give a preference to those age 55 and older throughout our leasing process, but obviously to the extent that a senior, again defined as 55 and older, is not available to rent that unit, that we of course need the ability to to have a fallback and rent to a qualified applicant, and then of course applies to both the market rate and the affordable units. At the time, back in 2014, our attorney Al Del Bello came in to explain the the changes that were being made. Al, as you guys all know, is unfortunately no longer with us, but at the request of the village, we wanted to come in to explain and also of course to answer any questions that you may have.
Did you always anticipate that the people in the affordable units would be seniors as well?
Yeah, we wanted to market the affordable units in the same manner as the market rate with the preference, correct.
What is the distribution between 1 and 3 bedrooms for the affordable units? Have you pinpointed which units are affordable?
Yeah, we've discussed with the board. Our initial goal was to utilize 2 1-bedrooms and a 2-bedroom, but after discussion with the planning department, we've agreed that we would proceed with 1 for the affordable units, 1 of each type. So 1 1-bedroom, 1 2-bedroom, and 1 3-bedrooms.
Okay, before we get into that detail, the real issue tonight is that the entire application process was based on senior housing. Originally, affordable senior. The developer came in and said, we don't think that that's possible. Okay, but we're going to maintain it as senior housing with the ratio of affordability in that. There was never, to my recollection, and I really, the board members who were here, I'd like you to stretch your brain a little bit, that the discussion of preference, I don't recall. And the reason I say that is because there were a number of decisions that were made on this project, that if we anticipated people who have the potential for added children, there might have been different requirements placed on this project, including a much, I would expect, we would have heard from our school district in great measure about that. But we were very comfortable because we anticipated that there's a real need in Austin to create senior housing, certainly senior affordable housing. And I don't think we have an issue of creating market rate regular housing. We've got applications all over for that. So this was a very particularly interesting project for us. So that's the linchpin here, is how are we going to address the fact that this entire project has changed its complexion from a senior project to just market rate like any other condominium rental apartment in Austin that gets built.
I have read the documents that were sent out to us, and I'm new on the board, so I have not followed this process in depth. But I do second what Chair Clark is saying about the process and how quickly, in terms of the time it's taken to get from approvals till today, how quickly the project really went from, oops, we can't do this, but we need to get another decision. There's one thing here that reading the minutes, it's dated 9/23/2014, so it must be from the previous minute there. Mr. Del DeBello is actually saying two different things within two different sentences. And to me, that is baffling. One place he says that in order for the project to become financially feasible, the applicant intends to set 10% affordable units in accordance with the 62.3 of the Code of the Village of Austin.
Right.
The balance of the units will be offered to seniors age 55 and over. Then a few minutes later, Mr. DeBello says the opposite. And he's, with regard, actually referred to his saying via our then planner, Ms. Monastra, that with regard to the affordable component, they have agreed to no more than 60% of the AMI, which is a slightly different level of what the other affordable units we have. Mr. DeBello said that they are still going to offer the 10% up to the 55 or older people. So within the same meeting, there is this complete reversal. And I would like to know, have you been on this project from the beginning? You're the owner? Okay. So I would like to know, and it's a very, very direct question. Was this something that was planned and anticipated from day one? We're going to ask for this, and then when we have it, we're going to ask for this. I really think that this, to me, indicates that there might have been such a progression in thinking or really poor financial planning from the beginning.
So, thank you for your question, but just, a couple of things I'd like to clarify, if it's okay with you, and also to the chairman's question. So, I think it's also, as an aside, worth noting, we didn't seek any sort of variances or waivers of any sort for this project. So, one would obviously ask a practical question as to why we let's say voluntarily limit ourselves in such a way. However, I too share your sentiment with the thought of confusion in the minutes, and I think that's also one of the reasons why it's great that these meetings are recorded today rather than having the minutes. But from our perspective, I can tell you, quite frankly, there's absolutely no upside to me going and asking the village for an approval to do one thing and then coming back. There was no obvious gain to me in doing such a thing, so the motivation would be, frankly, kind of curious. To answer your question with respect to poor financial planning, again, respectfully, also not the case, yeah.
I don't think that's our job.
I appreciate that. That being said, and also to Chairman Clark's point, we own multiple senior developments in New York City as well. This is something that we do quite often, and our strong preference, and I use this in a practical way, not in a, forgive me, planning board way, is to maintain a tenancy of those with somebody in the household age 55 and older. I can tell you that currently we have approximately 14 approved applicants for our units. Our agents at Halsted Property have been marketing while targeting seniors, of course, while staying in the parameters of fair housing, etc. Currently, we have, I believe, 3 approved tenants, prospective tenants, that have a resident age 55 and older. This has nothing to do with our desire to have or not have seniors in the building. Our strong, again, preference is to have those in the building. But obviously from a standpoint of financeability, as I deal with in all of my developments, there always has to be a fallback. And I poured through my old emails, et cetera, from 2014. Unfortunately, it doesn't go to 2011. But our goal, even when we dig into the nitty gritty and we use words like offer versus requirement. Speaking from my end, and I'm not an attorney, I'm not an architect, I'm not an engineer, but speaking from my end, it's my job to think of things, to say, I want to market a building to seniors, or whatever the preference might be. However, to the extent that person's not there, then what? And to be honest with you, we were kind of as surprised as anybody to be at this point and see this here, which is why we immediately wanted to speak with the planning department and corporate counsel and come see the board, whether this is again informally or whatever the process might be. But we have a process in place for both the initial rent up and re-rentals to target those at 55 and older. But we have a fiduciary responsibility to ourselves and our lenders to deal with
I have
the
a quick follow-up question, because it says from the minutes of 2012 that that you were going through and getting some loans and financing from the New York State Finance Agency, and that you had some requirements under that to stick to. Can you just elaborate a little bit? Did you get funding and financing through the agency, and does that have to do with the senior preference?
At the time, we were seeking funding actually from 2 sources. One was from the New York State Housing Finance Agency, and we were also looking to work with Westchester County, and the name of the program escapes me. But this also, as many of you were likely aware, happened to be around the time that there was this whole kind of HUD Westchester County settlement, which made it very difficult, if not near impossible, to finance affordable housing in many of these communities. So we were unfortunately caught up in that, which again has since been resolved, but at that time, that's what we were kind of caught.
Thank you.
So Stuart.
Yes.
So, I know I heard Walter say finances are not really part of this discussion, but in some cases, in this case, I think there are, because, and it's not necessarily finance.
It was my comment was in response to
It was in response to
saying
my...
that it was poor financial planning on their part.
Yeah,
I
it was
don't
in
think
response
we're
to
in
me.
business to say that.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I agree with that. But I think we certainly would like to understand, and not tonight, because it's not fair to ask you, but we did put this on the agenda tonight so that we could get a dialogue beginning on this, is to understand your marketing plan. How long have you been marketing? When do you actually expect people to go in there? Because last time I drove by, you couldn't get on the site, so and that was only within the last couple of weeks. So, if the fact that it didn't lease up in 6 months, and I don't know what the right amount of time is for senior housing or anything, but we certainly have other rental units around that anticipate anywhere from 6 to 18 months to fully occupy. I think we got to see the effort that's actually been made, because this is actually, I think, what, I don't hear any argument from the people who sat here that there was never an intention for this to be anything but senior housing. And so we have to do a lot of homework for the people who go to Rosslyn before we say, yeah, okay, we can change that. And it seems like 14 units, so you've got opportunities for 14 and 3 of them are seniors, or over 55. So that says that you've already had inquiries for people under 55 to move in.
Sure.
Okay. So I don't know, I don't understand your marketing plan. I don't know how you market the seniors, but it sounds like you do it, at least in New York City. So I think at our next meeting, we'd like you to come back and talk to us about that.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Actually, of Stuart.
Of course.
Because I'm a new member of the board, but just because I'm not completely aware of the process that happened before, on the site plan that this board approved, is there any written requirement that of a deed restriction, a covenant, some requirement that these units be restricted, age restricted in some way?
The deed restriction, which is on file with the county clerk, merely relates to just 3 units are to be affordable. Does not describe them as 55-plus units. So that's the formal deed restriction that's on file. It does not make reference to that.
But in what this board approved?
The resolution that this board just, to understand, approved 2 different resolutions. In 2012, the site plan resolution that was approved made reference to the fact that in one of the initial clauses, it was going to be senior 55-plus housing, and at that time was 100% affordable, the entire project. As a result of changes with regard to the developer, they came back in 2014 to change 2 things. One dealt with the recreation fees, and the other dealt with the percentage of affordable housing. Instead of being 100% for the entire project, it would be the 10% which we have under our current affordable housing. The resolution that was approved by the planning board at the August 23rd meeting, September 23rd meeting, thank you, Liz, notes again that, it's the applicant's proposal to construct a 25-unit development of affordable senior housing, and that's all in there.
That's the second resolution?
That's the second resolution. And then it notes that the board adopts and incorporates the recitations and statements set forth above as if fully set forth herein within the body of the resolution. So it does indicate that that was their proposal to construct the 25-unit development. Most of the paragraphs in the 2014 resolution are identical to the 2012 resolution, with the exception of the recreation fees and the percentage of affordability. Those were the 2 changes, and those were the changes that were requested by the developer.
And the second resolution, was that like an amendment to the site plan, or was it how was that
It was basically, they came back here, and it was effectively, the way that, reading the minutes there, the former planner, Ms. Monastra, indicated that she did not believe that the resolution actually the prior resolution had to be amended, but because they were changing the affordability component in terms of from 100 down to the 10, which is what the village has in its law, they wanted to change the resolution or amend the resolution to reflect that and reflect the change in the recreation fees. Because since there were going to be certain amenities provided on site, the size of the recreation fee was dropped. So that was a change from the 2012 resolution.
Okay.
So that's where you have it. But everything else in terms of affordable and number of units, that's the same as if you would have put the 2 resolutions side by side.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Is it fair to suggest that if you've returned to revise certain elements of the resolution to accommodate where you were in 2012, that you would have also, if you felt like the 55 and older was vague or really didn't address where you were headed, why not address it then, along with the other elements that were addressed as the second resolution, in the second
Well,
resolution?
Again, I'm not an attorney, but the reality is that, again, our intention was not to amend or not to change. Our goal, and again, even as I dug through emails and letters from 2014, was in fact at that time to maintain, a preference rather than a requirement, understanding that this particular property was not zoned for senior housing. I mean, to your point, which is a good one, that there was no requirement at the time, or a requirement that said, you must build senior housing here. Our desire to build a senior development on this property was a result of our goal and desire to own units that are, to the extent possible, inhabited by seniors, because we happen to like the tenancy. But again, for me, this is more a function of clarification rather than change in preference or use. So, I mean, at this time, we currently have, obviously, prospective residents that are on hold. And to answer your question, Chairman Clark, the reason that people aren't living in the development now primarily is because we wanted to obviously have the opportunity to discuss this with the board. I mean, the building is complete, but for paving of the parking lot, which I think is going to occur over the next couple of days, and I believe we have some work with the building department. I mean, the building is move-in ready. And I'm happy to share with you as far as.
Did you obtain the C of O yet?
No, we are, we're
Okay.
finishing the parking lot and we're working with the building
The C of O
department.
has not been issued yet.
That's right, okay.
Right.
Are you fully assessed as far as taxes, or or did you get a pilot for this
No,
project?
there's no pilot, we're gonna be fully assessed. Can't wait to see the number.
All right, so, where are we, board?
I suggest too that we have you come back and we see a detailed plan for how you are going to achieve the proposed goal. And I don't know, what that will do except for maybe just assure us. I don't know if it has any legal ramifications. It seems that there's a big issue of what is legally binding and not. So it's all gonna be in good faith, but.
I mean,
No,
as
but
far as
I
our
think that's
marketing
accurate.
plan.
That's not accurate. The resolution is clear.
I think the resolution is clear, and it goes to something, Mr. Chairman, that you mentioned. And I know we have counsel from the school district here. The school district, to be honest, there was no notice to the school district because we all believe this to be a 55-plus project. If it is potentially being looked at as a project where there would be under 55, where you have, 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units, you may be, at least I think the school district should have some opportunity to opine on that, because it does, they did not have a chance to opine earlier, because frankly, it was all viewed as 55 plus. But, the resolution makes reference to the 55 plus. The word preference does not appear in the resolution. And I think, but if the issue now is that there is a change in circumstances, which to go back to Member Fry's position, which is what brought them here in 2014, if there is a change in circumstances that brings them here now, I think that's something that needs to be investigated and looked at.
What do you expect from the board?
What do I
you
expect from the board?
Yeah. what do you
Look, again, we're not here with council this evening. That wasn't our goal as far as, my expectations from the board. I personally also, I do not view this as a legal issue, but I'm also hoping not to be in a position where I have to, have that discussion or have the argument. But, my goal, as it has been since we started working on this project, is to keep the board informed as to our intentions, and ultimately obtain a level of understanding from the board that and the concept is logical, right? Let's say that there are no seniors to run this building. And by the way, I'm happy to talk about my marketing plan now. I don't need another meeting for that.
No, we're not prepared for that
No
today.
problem.
Okay?
But again, my goal as far as what I hope to achieve from the board is simply whether it's a level of understanding or acknowledgement that that we are going to continue to make efforts both in rentals and re-rentals to target those age 55 and older, And, you know, again, we're happy to keep in communication, whether it's reporting or whatever the board we feel is appropriate, because it maintains our preference to fill this building with those age 55 and older. Really nothing further than that. I can tell you candidly, I haven't gone to the extent of looking at, is it a legal issue? Is it not a legal issue? And I don't feel that it's necessary to get to that person.
Okay.
I think we should just get some more information before our next meeting, which is on the 22nd. Mr. Vitosky, the planner or I will be in touch with you, so we can just go from there to have that information available so that we can present it to the board. And then we can invite you back on the 22nd so that we can have a further discussion, you know, with regard to this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Excuse me, would it be possible to speak on this property for a second?
Sure.
I'm a neighbor. You want me to come up?
But you've got to come up so
Okay.
that people at home can hear you, sir. And your name and address for the record.
Sure. So my name is Leah Schwartz. I own the property at 26 State Street rear, which is a cottage behind 26 State Street, which is actually adjacent to this property. I have a couple of concerns. The first one is with regards to the 55 and older. I personally called and inquired about renting an apartment on this property. I'm a few years shy of 55. And they had no problem telling me that I could absolutely apply as long as I got my application in before a 55-year-old did. I have actually no interest in renting the property. I own a house next door, but that's just for your own reference. Secondly, the original plan had a fire road going behind their building to reach my home. My home is set significantly off the street. The old access to my house was actually in the Elk Lodge property. It's not legal access, so I have a walking easement down along the side of 26. That fire road, though, was the only access to my home. Fire engines, ambulances cannot get to my house anymore. The fire chief himself came out and assessed and said, well, if we really had to do something, I guess we would run a hose from the street, but it would be pretty difficult. It's not what I want to hear. The original plan had a fire road. As it stands now, there is no fire road. They're building a park or something next to my house. My third concern is the building, whoever's building it, whoever's maintaining the property, it is covered in garbage. On February 22nd, I called the office, I spoke to Danielle, and asked that she please have somebody clean up the garbage that was blowing all into my road, into my backyard. I was picking up garbage on a daily basis. Danielle said she would get something on it. April 9th is when they cleaned it up. February 22nd to April 9th. I had garbage daily blowing into my yard, and there's a fence in between. Lunch containers, rotisserie chicken containers, milk cartons, everything.
Could you just clarify, when you said you called the office, did you call the office, construction office? Or did you call the
GAC.
building? Okay.
Yeah, GAC Builders, Danielle Kenoriakis, the administrative director.
Not the building. Okay.
Okay. And my fourth concern is really on behalf of my neighbors. It's not my immediate concern. I believe the original plan had a height limit on this building. As it stands right now, it has obstructed everybody in the back of this room's view of the river, which is significantly reducing the value of their homes. And I don't know if this is something that you guys can look into in the original proposal and the original plan. My view's not obstructed. I'm adjacent to the property, but they're all in those houses on 26. And all they see right now, right in their backyard, is this building. And the building's a lot closer to my house than it was supposed to be begin with. So I am not in the buildings department. I don't understand how this works, but those are our four concerns.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you.
Walter King, 22 State Street. Once again, I was here and had the other meeting. My stress is the same thing she has. It's definitely not fire friendly if there's a situation. I know where her house is. She's gonna be trapped. There's no way for fire trucks to get there as much as the building that they put up there. The original plans was not that. So here we are here again. It's simple, it is. Cannot. It was supposed to be for senior housing. They changed it, they came back with another plan, the resolution came back, they keep coming back. That building is a trap, it should not have been put there, it should not be there. That's just the bottom line. And those who haven't gone, actually go there and look at the building. It was, I don't know what board approved it, but it's just no way it should be there. There's just no way it should be on that property. Go there, observe it yourself, see what's going on. I actually please do that. Thank you.
Sir?
May I? Good evening.
My name is Igor Sivotowski, and I'm the architect of the project, part owner of the building too. This building has been built exactly in accordance to the approved plans. There was an independent survey done, requested by one of our neighbors' attorney also. The survey was performed, and the resultant of the survey was that his house is encroaching in our property. That's why the house to the north is so close to our driveway. We didn't going to take any action. The house was there, his house. We tried to accommodate this neighbor in his request of us putting some protection for his house in terms of cars driving in that driveway. We consulted with the village inspector, if we are allowed to do that. We consulted with the village attorney and the planner also. If we need a site plan resubmission to do that, we were informed that not, and we can go ahead and do it. He has problems with drainage. We told him that we will accommodate those problems too and allow his property to drain into our drainage, so he will solve his problems. The building conforms 100% with all the zoning code and building code of the village of Ossining. There was no variance requested. There was everything done exactly as per code. Nothing was basically in the zoning written about seniors. I was at the very first meeting of the project, and I clearly remember that we always offer to be a preference for seniors because it's a lot easier for us to manage the senior building. If we can occupy the building with seniors, we will occupy the building with seniors, but we cannot discriminate and send somebody away if they come, basically it's not a senior. In terms of the height of the building, up to the inch, the building conformed with the zoning. The building was inspected by the building inspector. There is a survey in the building. Everything was done by the book and according to what the site plan is, and the building inspector attests to that with the surveys, independent surveys that we have provided. Thank you.
Thank you. Sir? Before you, there's one.
I'm sorry.
Good evening to everybody. My name is Charles Anderson, and I live at 16 James Street and State Street. What am I talking about? And the original plan was supposed to be close to 80 Main Street, because they went to my house and we had about 4 different people, you know, who has the building. And they shows the plan. And that plan, it was supposed to be below my garage. They went down, but they didn't go down enough. And the base of the foundation was so high, it's higher than this, the ceiling. And what happened is each one of the modules, they're high. So they put 3 sets of modules there. So it went all the way up. So now we can't see the Hudson River, which the original plan, what they show us, would be below our garage. I think I said that before when I came here. Okay? Now there's another problem. The last time when we were here, I think that the board was supposed to be getting with the building inspector or somebody to go and inspect the walls, what they have there. I live right there. Whenever I get up, I could see the houses. I can't see the Hudson. They haven't done nothing towards those walls, which they say they're supposed to fix those walls. Okay? I don't know what's wrong with the inspector. And also, the last time they said they did modification to the windows. They haven't done nothing. I see everything because I live right there. I live here and the building is there. So I see everything. I see people moving in things in there. I guess they're already bringing in the thing in the apartments. Okay? And if you have some type of restriction against them before they fix what they're supposed to be fixing, they're not supposed to be doing no work. Today I saw them, I took pictures. They were fixing the driveway. So I don't know if you all know about that, or the building inspector.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I think the school district is next.
18th State Street?
You all right?
That's fine, of
Go ahead.
course.
Hi, my name is Wilson Alvarez on 18th State Street. I heard there's a new person, I think you're new on the board.
In
I haven't seen you
January.
before, we've been here so many times, I don't wanna repeat what my neighbor said.
I do remember when you were here,
Okay.
like 2 months ago.
So, I guess I don't have to go over these again. I even see that you guys have that in the screen, we don't have that anymore. So at least, maybe I have to do that on my TV too. But I have videos, I have pictures, there's a lot of things going on over there. They start working back in the days, very early in the morning, weekends, dust, garbage. It's a lot of things going on. I think I mentioned that I work in construction, so I have an idea what's going on. So I've been working in construction 20 years. And I don't want to say that those apartments are, it may look nice and here for the people who's gonna buy it or rent it. But when they put it together, even my little boy can put a Lego better than this. Just cheap, you know, cheap. When I've been driving in Austin for years, I used to work in the post office. And I love going down the street, the main street, and see those buildings that it's over 100 years old. That's real architecture. I'm from South America, from the city. It's almost 500 years ago. 500 years ago. And I used to have the Hudson River, and now they selling these beautiful apartments. But they put this thing that they put it together in, I think it was 2 weeks. It's not what it's inside, or what it looks like in a piece of paper. There's neighbors that have been paying taxes for years, years. And now they just come with these and they can do whatever they want. Do you have any idea how we feel? Probably no, because you guys don't live there. But we do. So now the house that we paid for, I don't think it's gonna value the same value before. So if we ask for help, should we ask you guys or should we go somewhere else? We don't know what to do. We just buy a house because we're a family. We don't buy a house to come over here every year.
So,
I'm sorry, because I may be the last time that I'll be here, to be honest.
No, and I understand that. I understand. I don't know if you're asking me a question about your
It's a
taxes.
question, it's what I feel, it's all together. I don't have a piece of paper like most guys over here to say if it's right or wrong. I'm just saying what I feel.
I know, I understand that, but there are some statements and some questions.
Yes.
So I don't know if the question is.
The question is-
The value of your house has depreciated because of this.
Yes,
Then-
totally.
Then where do you go?
And one more thing, it's very important. A couple of weeks ago, it was very, very windy. So they have these fans, metal fans for now, I think it's temporary, and they have these trees. They're very old, and I think they say they're gonna take care. They're not in the flat surface. They're like in the halfway, and so we measured that before. So hopefully, at least they're gonna take care of that and clean up the garbage.
So the planning board is really not responsible for the construction
Yeah,
part,
yeah.
but it's the only real way that most of you in the audience have any vehicle to make a comment. Okay, and we didn't have the staff here tonight
Mhm.
who will bring this back to the staff that manages the construction to make sure that they comply with all the building codes. And that was the question that came up last month.
Okay.
Okay, and there was a follow-up to that. And if there still requires more follow-up, then the village, we expect the village entities to do that, will do that. The question of your assessment, taxes,
Mhm.
is to see the assessor,
Yeah.
Fernando
Gonzalez.
And, you know, we just reevaluated all the properties in Austin, the town of Austin. So you certainly can go see him to find out what the view of that is. So I think I understand the questions. We also heard also about the siting of the building. Will the board, this board will get an answer back as to whether the building is sited where it was supposed to be, whether the elevations are what the planning board approved at the time, what has changed, et cetera. Apparently we've already done this independently, and what you all need to hear is what our findings were from that. Because I can't correct perceptions.
Sure.
I can only tell, since you're in construction, I'm gonna tell you what's really there.
Okay.
Okay? And I think that's the answer.
Well,
to-
if, you know, if we've been coming here for years, if at least you guys come out with something, you know, forget about these new investors and these new people coming over. Can you at least come over just with the neighbors and the people who really pay taxes for years and say something that you guys gonna do for us for at least once in the last, what, 5, 7 years? I don't know.
So that's the vehicle for these public hearings,
Okay.
okay? But there is an ordinance that everybody follows. The questions you raised tonight is were the processes that are laid out in our zoning ordinance followed, right?
Okay.
Whether view sheds changed or not, there's nothing in the village code that says that somebody who has a view today gets the view tomorrow because there's vacant property in front of them. Some of us who live in hilly areas know that better than, the same as you know,
Yeah.
right?
We're not in hilly area.
Yeah. So,
Houses are
you know,
built next door.
But at least this will help because this been going on for years, all the way from Yonkers, all the way to Peekskill. So if, you know, if
But that's,
this,
but I think that's a different question.
yeah, it will, yeah, I know, but,
That's really part of, at some point, the comprehensive plan review. But right now, anybody that comes to this board goes by the zoning ordinances that are in place today.
okay.
Your input on what it should be, there'll be an opportunity for that too, sometime, I believe, within the next, between now and the end of the year. I don't know when, I thought it'd be by now, but,
Agreed.
but we're not there. So, but anyway, thank you, I know there are more people who
All
want
right.
to speak. Thank you. Don't want to go in any hurry.
Chris Rydell Construction. I did all the hauling out the building. I did everything for GAC Builders. What this man is saying is false. They cut so many corners down there, and so many things they did down there. I was the hauler, and I read the blueprint. They was off a lot. Till one of the managers got into a fight with the owner of GAC Builders because he didn't want me to haul no more loads out because it was costing too much money. So he said, this grade gotta go down. He said, no, leave it. And they left it. They left it. The wall supposed to went straight across. It didn't go straight across. It went straight, and a big gap is in the wall, long as this wall, and just left it. They cut so many corners. I was there to witness it. I was the trucker from the start to the finish. And I don't care if they hear me say it. And even the manager said, this building is not good. It's not sitting right. And to the point where they just said, you know what? We're not gonna do it no more. That's it. I don't wanna keep paying to haul these loads out, so we gotta cut corners. And that's what they did. And they cut them. And the blueprint, they didn't go by that. They didn't go by that. These guys didn't want to pay anymore. So you know what the manager says? GAC Builders, all right, they don't want to pay no more. So we got to do this, we got to do that. To make ends meet. And they told me this. Okay, that building's not right. It's not right at all. And I am the trucker. And I was the contractor down there as it was going on. And I see everything. And I can give you names. I can give you times and dates.
So, Mr. Rana, I think that it would likely be in touch with you, but.
I hope so, because I got times, I got dates, I got everything. I can show you, I can take you down and show you what they did and what they didn't do.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, sir. I think now, the school district.
Thank you. Good evening, Chairman Clark, members of the board. My name is Carrie Ann Tondo. I'm with the law firm of Ingram and Smith. We are counsel to the Ossining Union Free School District. I must first apologize for Superintendent Sanchez, who would like to be here this evening, except they have their board meeting this evening. Otherwise, he would be with me. It is likewise my understanding, as stated by Mr. Kahan, that the school district did not receive notice of this project at its inception in 2011, or when it came before the board for modification in 2014. As I'm sure you can appreciate, a modification to the complexion of the project from its intended 55 and over community to something different raises significant concern to the school district in terms of the potential impact to to its educational operations, its facilities, and its finances. These concerns are not new to the planning board. I think the school district has shared them with you as it relates to any projects that are undertaken within the school district's boundaries. I submit that the school district has not had an opportunity or the ability to participate in the process as it relates to this project. And on behalf of the school district, I respectfully urge the members of the board to not accept any modification to this project or allow it to move forward unless and until this impact to the school districts are fully evaluated and necessary mitigation measures put in place to protect the interests of the school district and its operations. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. So we'll
14 State Street. I mean, besides everything everyone says, my concern is the retaining wall in the back. Like the guy was saying, it's supposed to be straight, but it goes on an angle. I mean, I have images if you guys want to see them, check them out.
I believe you shared them.
Yeah, last time.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
not sure if you guys evaluated that.
A report back from our building department.
Okay.
Both the building inspector and the planner have been to the site, and will continue to go.
Thank you. Perfect. Okay. Okay, so,
Sir, are we gonna be notified, like what you did, you wanna send us a letter about the whole thing that we will come back to the meetings?
I expect we'll hear on the 22nd.
Yeah.
So come back on May 22nd.
A letter is better.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Our staff is getting.
Thank you for everything, sir.
Don't take us yet. Okay.
Thank you.
Moving along to BAR.
May I make a suggestion for the next time? I feel like having the approved site plan, well, one of the approved site plans at our disposal to not only reference and share, and then perhaps a few photos of the perimeter of the site, particularly along the easterly edge, where, at least according to some of the supposition tonight, there are retaining walls that aren't compliant with the site plan, and in particular, the notion for emergency vehicle access. Now, I suspect part of the confusion or the lens that's being used is that I don't recall that lane being paved, and often they're not paved. The subsurface is prepared, the clearances are provided, and the access is confirmed with the fire department that this is the access for emergency vehicle access. So if we could just clarify that for ourselves and for some of the neighbors that would.
And Member Fry, just with regard to Ms. Schwartz, who I think has left, but with regard to her property, which is at 26A, that property was the subject of prior litigation with the prior owner of the Elks Lodge. At the time that Ms. Schwartz purchased the property, this project had already been approved. It's my understanding that she was under the impression that she had a right of access through the Elks Lodge. In fact, the court decision was to the contrary, so she did not have that right of access. I did visit her home, in fact, with members of the Ossining Fire Department who indicated that while there may be difficulty with trucks going down the driveway, they could lay hose if necessary, in fact, to get to the house in the event that there was a fire. We'll certainly have all that the next time. I'll also ask that the building inspector be here next time, because he's the one who's in fact doing the inspections of the property and can comment on exactly what the situation is.
Okay, great, okay.
Would it be possible to maybe gather some of these questions from we've now heard them several times, you know.
They're all on the record.
Okay.
We'll look at the video and we'll go from there.
Okay, good.
Okay, so we'll move along to 49 Spring Street is BAR. 28 North Malcolm Street, I believe, is also on the planning board, so we will adjourn that before we get there. Hudson View Condominium. I don't think that one is.
No, it's not.
I think this is a BAR. Hudson View Condominium is seeking approval to demolish and replace garages. with new construction, which looks essentially the same as what they had before. Is there someone from Hudson View to speak to this?
Hello everybody, my name is Caitlin Robusto. I'm from Jamal & Associates Architects Planners. We are the architects for the proposed project for garages H1 and H2 at Hudson View Condominiums. We are proposing, this is the location of the plan of the garages here for a rough site plan taken from a survey. And when we did our first inspection of the property, we went and took a look at garages H1 and H2 at the request of the board, and we found that there is significant structural damage to the slab, to the foundation. There's a drain inlet that, as far as we're concerned, is not even in operation. It was in pretty rough shape, so instead of, we explored some ideas of patching it and this, that, and the other thing, we decided it would be best to knock down the two garages, which I believe is in a 5 garage, there's 5 garages next to each other. We're knocking down the first 2, replacing them in kind, to eliminate the structural problems. There's a proposal to shore it as the construction is happening, but it's being replaced in kind, and the siding is being replaced as was approved in a prior application. What we have here, replacing the foundation, replacing the slab, replacing all the construction, the roof, whole 9 yards for those 2 garages, which are at the left if you look at the unit. I have a sample back there if you want me to go get it and pass it around what the siding is going to be. The siding has already been approved. It's a vinyl siding. We're not changing anything stylistically. It's just to replace it for a structural efficiency. I'm sorry?
And it's vinyl today?
Yes. I believe so. I have a sample. I thought it was vinyl.
It's wood.
It's, the wood is being replaced, and that's already been approved with a vinyl siding. Yeah, it's behind you. Thank you. You can pass it around if you'd like.
So I don't remember approving any material.
Well, the siding project's been underway for about 1.5 years at this point.
I've been here since 2000.
When she says the board, she means the board.
I think I mean,
Yeah.
sorry, yes, maybe not this particular board, but they had been approved previously.
Important distinction.
Yes, okay, so I'm not sure about this board, but a board has approved the siding. It's the same siding that's being used throughout the development complex. There's no change to anything, it's just being replaced because it was structurally deficient.
So I just need to now be clear.
Okay.
Is there an overall re-siding occurring at this place?
The whole place has been resided.
And you've replaced the wood with vinyl siding?
Yes, which is that right there. It has been gotten rid of, and almost every building in Hudson View Condominiums has been resided, except for the one that's under, being done right now, and Garage H, which we are going to do pending the reconstruction of these garages that I'm proposing to you today.
Yes.
Quite.
Okay.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
Quite.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly.
I mean, truthfully, we really haven't looked at siding. I mean, I think, my experience has been you have to take out cement when you do a roof, but I don't think siding, unless things have changed in the village, requires a permit. That's maybe on an individual home. I'm not sure how condominium association.
So I think
falls.
NPAR.
As long as, I think that's true. I think if we approve the color, when we approve aluminum, I don't know if we approve aluminum anymore, but vinyl siding pretty regularly on other projects around. It just, so, I'm just not sure what we do with this. So my sense is that since it's in place in kind, and people from the street will not know the difference, I don't really have a big problem with this.
The only indication that anybody would have that it's different are the 2 people who own the garages, who have not even spoken up about the structural deficiency.
The dilemma with is when you change material.
Yes.
So, and you, since you work for Ed.
Yes.
You probably know this better than me.
Yes, sir.
Is that you don't get the same context.
Right.
You know, you can't, well, today you probably can get, if you want to pay, vinyl equivalents to what might have been the wood treatment before.
Right.
But we should ensure that.
Okay. My only, I'm sorry. My only, I guess concern with that would be is if we were to pursue changing the siding on this particular building. Okay.
I think the point is
Yes.
that, you know, and this is not, it's not you, it's the contractor.
Right.
So they need to know that, you know, if they change what the board approved, the
Right.
concept.
Right.
What the materials are different, you know, when they redid ShopRite, you know, that interesting cornice that they put up. It looks like it's 8 feet long and ought to weigh 3,000 pounds.
Right.
One person, one hand lifted it up because it's styrofoam.
Right.
Right? From the street, nobody knows the difference.
Right.
It also has longevity issues, although vinyl will be here long after all that wood is composted and gone. But does the board have any issues with this?
Well, I mean, in the context of
This
your
particular
proposal, given the context of where the project's headed, I do not have a problem. And I'm not suggesting there is any other problem, other than it's an interesting question. Michael's observations are accurate historically. I'm not sure we've encountered a siding or a reconfiguration at this scale before. Perhaps we have in just.
Well, we have Atria.
But that included lots of design, other elements too.
Yeah, they were for site plan.
So the only question is, you know, I think this is a one-off, and it's, in my humble opinion, it's a one-off and it's consistent with where they're headed. Should we think about, as other multifamily projects begin to age, and we probably have a significant number who are approaching a similar scenario, is it the intent there for us to see this scope of, I don't know.
Is under the BAR legislation, it's only triggered when there's a permit required, is that? I don't want to put you on the spot because you don't have them in front of you, but.
Thank you.
But I guess my thought is if that, and I'm not speaking to this particular project, but maybe for the future, if that is the case, maybe that's something that could be looked at legislatively.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's true, and by the way, not even a roof, unless it requires structural issues. You can change your roof with no permit. So, unless you have to replace wood, then you need a permit.
But I guess my question is when, to bring you in front of us as a
No,
BAR.
there's probably no real mechanism for that. But what John is asking is, should there be, when it comes to, you know, any of these large-scale developments where there's gonna be, you know.
How many buildings do you have in the site?
There's 17 buildings plus a clubhouse.
Yeah,
And then
that's
there's
it.
several garages, I think through F or G, several garages. And they've all been resided,
Right.
decks have been redone, front entryways have been redone, replacements have been made where required.
But usually the condo boards make these decisions, right? And that's sort of how we got there.
Just like a
Yes.
homeowner would make a
Right.
decision for their own home.
Right.
The
For
boards
a
of
single-family home.
Right.
And Jeff, as it points out under 27058, thanks again, Lynn, that it needs a permit.
To trigger BAR.
To trigger it, you gotta have a
If you're
permit.
doing something that doesn't require a permit, then
Doesn't
BAR
trigger.
has no jurisdiction to come,
Correct.
right, so.
Okay, so you have, is there any other questions from the board? Any questions from the public on this? No? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll move it if no one did.
I'll second it.
Thank you.
All right. So let's move on to 8 Narragansett. 8 Narragansett, everyone? Construction of a rear yard addition. Rear yard, anybody? 8 Narragansett.
John Lentini is the architect and Jorge Ferreira is the owner.
Okay, this is 8 Narragansett?
8 Narragansett, yes.
Okay.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I'm John Lentini, architect. I'm here with the owner, George Pereira, and his son. You see his son back there. We are attempting to add, first of all, I've gotten more responses. I don't know if I should provide these to you.
Sure, I'll take them.
Okay. Suppose, three more, and 2 letters came back undeliverable. This is the rear of the house. What has occurred, we filed to fix the cellar of this house. George has come upon a technique of excavating the rear of the house so that you could drive into the basement and pretty much replace the foundation of this building. So my initial plan was like a 3-set of drawings showing all the elements that had to be used to shore up the building and to essentially replace it. Right now, the foundation is a combination of block, concrete, rubble, stone, mud, and it's in horrible condition. For his efforts, he was hoping to get something out of it, which will be this 100-square-foot addition. He'll have to take that part of it down that's there now, but then when he comes to restore the back of the building, we were to add this 1-story addition, about 100 square feet, with a porch above it. It's our intention at this time to replace the colors that are there. The building has corner boards. The existing building, well, this is a front view. I understand it's an historical building. This has been here for some time. And the rear of the building has pretty much the same details. Just to view the rear, that we are emulating, except with this extension on the back. It's to extend the kitchen inside.
How about the new front elevation, John? Will that be the same?
Yes, we're not touching the front. In fact, the original plans was a complete restoration, but after going through all this effort, he figured, let me get something out of it, get another 100 square feet out of what he was looking to.
But that won't change?
This won't change at all, no. And if it does in the future, he'll file, as we discussed, perhaps stuccoing the house. And I told him, don't dare. I have enough problems right at this point. We're restoring the house, and if he were to do that, he'll come in with a different application for that. But right now, I've been working on this since last July, and it's something that should have been taken care of. It's presently secure. The building has shoring. The whole basement has been stilted. There's supports. He has a pump that does flood from time to time. There is a water problem in this area. I mean, there's other people from this neighborhood, our adjoining neighbors, that might want to speak to this issue. And I've already talked to them about implementing anything we could do to enhance the drainage. But it isn't part of my application now, but we're very conscious of the fact that we have to not let any water, as a result of what we're doing, leave our property.
You require no variance?
No, it's a non-conforming use, but the area is, the side yard isn't. But upon consultation with the building department, I understood we were allowed, by some decision perhaps this board made, that we were allowed to expand to a certain extent, under 150 square feet.
2 questions.
Yes.
The railing material?
The railing material is depicted as wood.
Type of wood?
Type of wood, pressure treated wood. Well, we didn't really talk about this. I'm showing white and brown. I was thinking actually that combination would look good, but would you consider vinyl? I mean, I don't know if the board is looking for vinyl, but...
I think that, for me, the sufficient answer would have been anything other than pressure treated lumber.
Anything other than pressure treated lumber. Vinyl?
And is there a reason why you have a double hung on the left and a slider on the right?
The interior design now calls for an interior stair, and it sort of offsets that. That window is to provide light to the stairwell. The double hung was, frankly, I didn't put too much thought into it. It could be balanced, But the other one is a casement, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay. Yeah,
I
it
mean,
looks like they're all double hung except that one.
yeah,
Yeah.
why not
They're
keep it the
weighted.
same?
Well, the kitchen is, is that where the kitchen sink is going? Behind one of those windows?
You wanna, you can change the window.
We could change it to double hung,
Let's
yes.
see.
I mean, in the existing, it looks like you have two sets of casements on either side of the door
Yes.
in the annex, what do you call it? So, and also you have three over two lights everywhere, but that's not reflected on the
I believe
new
so.
drawing. Is that, those windows are not being changed, are they?
Well, we're going to reuse, now that I realize it, we were planning on reusing the existing double slider casement. I'm pretty sure it's a casement that is there, moving that to the new extension, and then there's a double hung around the side of the
Yeah,
building.
okay,
We were gonna-
that I can see and understand, but then, so then it would be both sides that would be casement, or sliders, whatever they are.
Well, no, I am still at this point proposing one double hung and one slider, but he could change it. The reason we couldn't use both of the sliders, it's wider than the hallway going down the stairs, so I had to put a smaller window in.
Okay.
So what, so are the,
So, is there an interior
so you
plan?
gotta, so you got this type here, and I got different here. Is that because you didn't have a tent?
Those are existing windows, and,
But they're different.
yeah, they're existing, and they all have dividing grills, they're meant to stay with dividing grills.
And they all have dividing.
All have dividing
So,
grills.
so the drawings are not
The drawing's
reflecting
not.
that?
No, the drawing is focusing on the extension, but and it was also somewhat of a speak. Can I present this to you?
All right.
Can have this.
Yeah, we have that already.
Oh, you have that already?
Yeah, we do
Okay.
have it, and that's why we were questioning. Do you have, I mean, it's hard to really understand without seeing a plan, where there is a staircase and this is going down into the basement, is that what
Yes.
you're doing? Okay. It's, architecturally, I don't see the justification for two different windows, but if you don't have a plan view anywhere from the first floor.
Well, we could put a smaller slider rather than the double hung. Or we could replace the slider with a double hung. We can change them both to double hungs, which would
So
conform.
the entire building has double hung windows?
Yes,
Except for that one?
right, which is exactly what was there.
So,
Except
You
for
can
the
do
two.
everything
No.
the same.
One of those is a door, not a window.
yeah, but they're going away. There's an addition going in front of it.
Right, but he was intending to reuse the
He was
windows.
gonna reuse one of these, that was the sort of pattern line.
So these are sliders today,
Or case.
I see.
or casements? What are these windows do? Do they open like
This
this?
slider open.
The ones that I have now, this one, I didn't even pay attention to it. I never used this one, but it's there right now.
I think they're cases.
Are they casements where you roll them like this and they open up?
I'm not sure because I never used it.
I'm not sure either.
I think the easier
Well, I
is stick
think
with double hung.
Why don't you just make them all double hung?
Yes, well, we can make all double hung.
I'll make it all the same.
Absolutely.
Any other questions?
That's why Mr. Veldetti gets the big part.
No? Okay. Are there any questions from the public on Narragansett Avenue? Please give your name and address for the record.
Hello, my name is Eric Talbot. I live at 8.5 Narragansett Avenue. My wife and I are the property owners of 8.5 Narragansett Avenue. We are George's immediate neighbor to the, I guess it's really kind of to the west, northwest. And so number 6 is his other immediate neighbor, so we sit in between. Generally, I support this project, George. It's a good neighbor, and I've come here tonight to just voice a couple of concerns I have. not so much related to the design of the project, but conditions that may be created because of the work. Currently, we own the driveway, we own a flag-shaped driveway that is the driveway for both of our houses, 8 and 8.5. George has an easement, we both have an easement, actually. I can egress on part of his property to turn around. It's about a 75-foot rectangle that's probably 20 feet wide or so. That is the main thoroughfare into both properties. Since George has begun doing some work, and he began this last July, he's taken some grass and some shrubs away, which has left nothing really much on top to absorb stormwater. Now, this area of Ossining has a lot of clay soil. Anyhow, I'm not looking at a map, but I can just tell you it's right near the creek. Anecdotally, there's clay in my yard. I mean, it doesn't absorb water well anyhow with foliage or with ground cover. But recently, he has a commercial business, so he has been making room for his to park his truck, and we just want to make sure that in the plan that stormwater controls get addressed, because I have a picture. What's happening now is that we're at the lowest part of the hill, so water tends to run from all properties there, but being that George is not able to capture a lot of water on his property because he's taken the ground cover away, we were having more inundation of water. This is just a picture to show you. This is not, really, I'm just looking for a solution here, like we don't want.
That's all water?
That's all water right there. My main concern is that we may get water intrusion into our basement. That's not an issue right now, it hasn't been, but that's last Monday's rain. So if you guys recall, that rain is the first nice rain we've had in a while. It's a pretty good one. Pretty good one. Everybody agree?
Okay, so I think I understand. So I have a question.
Yes.
For the owner or his representative. So is this construction already underway?
No, the work he's referring to was to stabilize the building, to just shore it up. He dug around the foundation to put stilts underneath it.
Is our building department aware of that?
Oh, yes.
Yes. Well, I know that we've got an order to remedy that was issued in March.
Yes.
With regard to the presence of a temporary trailer which was on premises, and as well as construction materials and equipment, including a Bobcat motor vehicle, wood pallets, ladders, cinder blocks, bluestone pavers, Belgian curb pavers, scaffolding, 5-gallon buckets, 50-gallon drums, wood form materials. It's unclear if this has been resolved. I don't know if it's actually gone to the appearance stage yet. And also there appears to be a masonry stockyard being run from the rear of 8 Narragansett. That's the other listed violation here.
Could we have George address that?
Sure. I think we're going to really address it. So I think since the building department is aware of this, the building department should go out tomorrow and make sure that, since this is under construction, the appropriate construction sort of, I'm lost for the word.
Water
hay bales and
erosion control.
Erosion control is in place. Okay, well, that should solve it in the short term and make sure that we should, well, this is BAR, since he is, somebody's got to address where the runoff goes.
Right.
For the addition, so we should see a plan for how you're going to deal with that, and that should help as well.
Yeah, that's really our concern, is just
So
that.
I think the answer is that you need to, it sounds like you're in this business, so you know what you have to do. Do it. Okay?
But I'll have the building inspector go out there.
Okay, any other questions tonight? If not, is there a motion to approve?
No,
with the
I'm
condition?
satisfied, thank you, John.
Okay, any other?
Wait, you made the motion?
Who's
Yeah,
making the
motion.
motion? You are? I is making the motion.
I'm making a motion.
Second?
to-
Jeff, all in favor? Please be sure the stipulations are in there.
There's,
That you need to do this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Take care, George.
Okay, so that
Oh,
takes care of the BAR.
We approved it with the change to the window?
Yeah.
Double hung throughout.
Okay. Now, sir.
My name is Bettini. I live at 200 feet up of this house. I built the house. It's a one-family job. He told me I need 35 feet the curve to the house. Now, this house only got 3 feet or 4 maximum on the cedar porch over there. The first one. The second one, this is a two-family, one family zone, but this house is 2 family. He got a 3 meter. Now we want to make about 3 family or 4. This is the question. I don't mind if he build.
So, I think you raise an interesting and fair point. However, this is a BAR, but if you're raising the issue of whether this is a legally constituted residence, then we need our building department to investigate, based upon what you're telling us.
You just said.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Miss Bettini.
Yeah.
He didn't understand you.
Okay, so you raised several points, of which we can't confirm here tonight, but our building department will, and they will check the assessment record to be sure that this is legally what it's supposed to be. And it clearly, after the addition, it will be what it's
Yes.
supposed to be.
Right.
So.
You're gonna
thank
let
for
us
raising
know?
that. So.
Yes, I'll give you my card. I'll let you know.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
All right.
Yeah, I want to tell another thing. I live in this zone for 65 years. Everything is beautiful for 40, 45. The old man, he belong to 3 houses in this block, and mine. Everything is perfect. The people, he park the car, he follow the rule. 8, 10 years, everything is changed. Now, each house is sold. No park in the garage of the car anymore. You park in the park, you park in the street. You park a car in the street, and you go inside and move another car outside, and then you put the car inside. The people you park, sometime of the line is big, all the way to the back of the home. 8, 9 o'clock in the morning, 4, 5 afternoon. You're supposed to see, believe.
Okay.
You sit down over there.
We understand. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Now we'll move on to Baker. Baker, so here.
There's no option.
I guess, are you here just keep us company tonight, Mr. Baker?
Yes, I'm here to just observe.
Okay.
See if there's any comments or questions.
Okay. We will move along to 25 Terrace, which application needs to sign, submit drawing. Okay. So we'll adjourn that. 25 North Malcolm Street, Victoria Home is asked to be adjourned.
Yes, we're meeting with them, in fact, on Thursday.
86 South Highland Avenue is adjourned. It's going to be here. It says, with adjourned, it says to the planning board. That was submitted, complete. Survey was recently submitted. And.
86?
I think I started my fault there, sorry.
So this is to correct a.
Yeah, they have what they believe is a 5-family house, and the tax record shows it. They were caught in violation, came to our attention, the building department sent it to us. They were before the planning board sometimes the zoning board, they're here, that's what they submitted to
So are they before the Board of Zoning Appeals?
No, they will be if you guys were to remove their 5-family, because they have the deficiency in the size of their units. that would need their approval. Like they have a conditional use.
Why would we do that?
Can you repeat, I'm sorry.
There's a conditional use, they're here for a conditional use.
But if the unit size is not big enough, why would this board prevent it?
Well, if they get a variance for the unit size, but you guys don't give them a conditional use to have the 5 units. So the tax record showed it was a 3-family house.
I got that.
They have 5 families.
They have 5
And they want to
families.
legalize their 5 families.
What zone is that?
It's PO, so it's conditional use for a multifamily.
All right. And do they conform in every other?
Good evening,
Hi.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Well, we have existing multifamily home that has been there since 1901 or 2, something like that. And they had 7 families there in the house. We got rid of the ones on the ground floor, and basically we're trying to legalize 5. The apartments are pretty good size. They're all 1,200 square feet, except the one studio is 700. We have plenty of parking. We required 8 parking spaces. We have 12. And, we were a little bit delayed providing the survey. There were some other issues, but we're here now to get it resolved.
So you have 5 legit, so you have 5 units. You're proposing 5 units that all meet minimum size standards per the village code.
The studio is 777, and the rest of them are about
What
1,200.
should the studio be?
600. 800.
800. What is it in our other district?
The NC and the VC have a different unit.
Well, that's unusual.
Yes.
We could make it bigger, just a couple square feet if we
Well,
had to.
I'm hesitant to approve anything that's under the village's minimum requirements, because minimum is a big word, right? It says that's the least.
4 units are over 1,200 square feet.
And they're 1-bedroom units?
The 2 2-bedrooms and 2 1-bedrooms,
And they're all at 1,200 square feet?
and bigger.
All right. Okay, so, but you say you could go from 777 to 800 without,
Yes, we
without
could.
a lot of trouble?
Yeah, we could add
And you
it.
conform to the parking
Yes,
requirement?
we do.
All set, and there's the only variance you need then from the Board of Zoning Appeals is to allow you to have a 5-unit dwelling.
It's not the zoning variance, it's a special permission in PO zone.
Who does that?
It's a conditional use, you guys.
So you don't need a zoning board?
No.
Okay, how did we get to the Board of Zoning Appeals? Well, they went there and then they changed their mind.
There was a recommendation from the last meeting.
I got it, okay.
That because of our yard is only 5 foot, and the original requirement is 10, so we were short on certain area variances, and we were asked to come to zoning board to get them approved because of, the mortgage requirements, et cetera. That was
And now
the,
those requirements have all gone away? How do they go away?
that was a recommendation, that was reasoning for it.
Their uses, they're not changing the foundation.
The position in the zoning board had been that even if they were pre-existing non-conforming, they needed to be legalized when they came before the zoning board. The position that is now being taken is that if it's a pre-existing non-conforming and thus a legal use, unless the footprint is being changed, it's not being required that they have to essentially get a new.
But it's not a legal use. It's trying to become a legal use.
Well, but to the extent of the setback, this usually comes up with setbacks. And the position is, which has happened in the past, is that what the zoning board has done is a person might be asking for a particular an area variance. And they have 4 or 5 others. But I'm
I don't
just,
necessarily want to,
okay.
but what I think this is the discussion for any number of properties, you know? So we need to get the discussion right.
Yes.
Because there'll be more coming our way. Any questions from the board? I'm not doing too much.
I'm waiting for you to frame the let's get the discussion right part.
Yes.
Are you gonna create the checklist for us?
Well, we could go down, right? I mean, one of the things is the size of the lot. The second thing is adequate parking on site, is that the units are the appropriate size, right? That the neighborhood supports this kind of environment. I think are probably 5 things that we want to think about.
Right.
And there may be more. You know,
Let's start with the easy metric, and I believe you mentioned it. Your parking complies.
Correct.
In size of spaces, number of spaces, access to space.
Well, if you could see, and you have
Do
some
we have-
pictures up
Yes.
there. This is existing building that was built 1902 or somewhere at that close to that year. The original lot is 67 instead of 100. The left side is only 5 foot instead of 10 feet, and that's basically the issues with existing non-conforming. Now, we have parking spaces here, and we have a garages.
I
So-
can't see, could you?
You can see it up here.
I just can't see when,
Oh, you can
she
see.
what's
Oh,
the
okay,
point
so-
to, sorry.
All right, so here we go. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5,
Okay.
6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 3. So we need 8. We have more than that.
And if you could just point out, all the units enter a central point or different locations?
Well, there are 2 points of entry. One is from the front door.
Mhm.
There is a small lobby. There is entry to apartment on the first floor, which is 1 bedroom. Then there is a stair that goes up to the second floor, that's 2 bedrooms. And then another stair going to an attic. Now, all the units also exit in the back. There is a second means of egress in the back where there's stairwell taking them down.
Right, I see that on the photograph.
okay.
Okay,
And you can remedy the size of the.
Yeah, we could take over the closet next apartment, yeah. It's only 25 square.
so I mean, just from being familiar with the neighborhood and certainly the images that have been submitted, the house exists in the context of adjacent houses that are similar scale, size, number of stories. Some have evolved over time in a similar pattern. So I would suggest that in the context of the neighborhood, it is consistent with the context of the neighborhood. What was the other thing, the other lever we need to pull?
The PO district, does that end at Nelson Park? I'm trying to think,
I believe it does.
because they're sort of like the last block before Nelson.
No, yeah.
This one-
That's William Street.
Williams north of that, I think.
Yeah, okay.
They're south of
They're
Williams.
south of William.
Yeah, because the professional building is on the corner of Washington.
Right.
Goes down to Washington.
Yeah, which is the corner of Nelson.
Right.
Okay. All right.
I mean, I'm not really having an issue with it. I am, like you, it's more procedural. Where do we start? Where do we come in the process?
I think the fact that they need no variances is a plus, right?
Yeah.
That says that the building is sited correctly, not infringing on anybody's right-of-ways or side yard, or rear yard setbacks. They've had adequate parking that's not infringing upon anybody's, right to use their property. What, tell me about the screening from the neighbors. I mean, this is a site plan issue.
I mean, if you look at the pictures.
There is some.
There is some, yes.
I
Yeah.
don't know how much more or less detail you can.
There is a screening on this side, which separates 86 from the kindergarten. There's a kindergarten on this side.
You're right next door to the Austin Children's Center.
Yes.
Right, yeah.
And
Right next.
there's
No,
there's
it's
some
gonna be back.
foliage on the other side as well.
Come on, is this the house? Right in the middle?
Yeah, that's the house.
What's all this stuff laying on the grave?
Where is it?
It's not site.
What's all this?
But it's under planning board, so you're right, you know, the site plan.
This is their issues, this is all the trans park, right?
These are all the parking, this is all gone, this is all gone.
So is this the property?
Yes.
Okay, so yeah, so we definitely want screens. I mean, look here.
Yeah.
Is there a site plan application here, or is this as conditional use? I don't understand, it's like going back to Kai's question of what's the procedure.
Yeah.
So,
Application for a conditional use permit.
so there's a site plan application, or no, they don't need one?
Not, they have provided a site, but it's not a site plan application, it's for conditional use to have this as a five.
But you can't approve the conditional use.
Unless you see the site plan.
See the site.
Right.
It's just, from nomenclature, you're not approving a site plan here.
Right.
Effectively, by granting the conditional use, you've looked at the site plan and, you know, are okay with it. I do note that there is a shared driveway, is that correct? Because you have the driveway, I
Well,
guess, with the children's center now,
yes.
that's a shared driveway?
partially.
Partially shared, right.
Partially shared driveway, yes.
I think they may have, at the other one, you know, joint easements.
Right. So I think the only thing that I see is that there should be adequate screening of the back.
Okay. We'll provide.
And the size of the studio apartment.
And, well, yeah, that's got,
Well, we'll make an increase on that.
otherwise they gotta get a variance. Okay, so you can return and come up with those two suggestions? We want to see it.
Okay, so
Okay.
that's fine.
All right,
We'll provide it.
all right.
All right,
Good.
thank you.
Any questions from the public? No? Okay, we'll move on. Okay. 49 Spring Street is the ZBA. ZBA, right. So we're at 173 North Highland. So, JB here?
He's coming back in a few minutes. Can you keep going, City?
Where are we? Okay, where are we at 30, where are we at 35 North Highland? 35 Pearl Street.
That's a good.
Adjourn that one. 28 North Malcolm.
28 North Malcolm is the DAR that you had before.
Right, but we didn't hear it.
Right.
So this is the DAR and the planning board. So here
So we're here for BAR and planning board. Should we present both at once?
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Not sure exactly how to approach this, but this is a almost 1.5 acre property with an 1856 house, beautiful house. Historically was for a while used as a two-family house, but it was not legal. It had, the kitchen had sort of been mostly removed when Mr. Charnoff bought the house. But we'd like to put that second apartment back in. It's in the basement level. The house is sort of strange. It's on quite a steep slope, and it has essentially two front doors. So as you come up this driveway, this is the front of the house, or here's the driveway here, you see the front of the house, there's a two-car garage. The driveway is already big enough for more than 2 cars, but just parked along the edge here. So there's 4 parking spaces, easily probably more than that. And our site plan is really to do nothing. There is adequate screening all along the edge of the property. It is plenty big enough for 2 apartments. There's 4 bedrooms upstairs, a cupola, then there's 4 large rooms on the main level, and then the basement has, right now it has 2 bedrooms and a kitchen and living room, and our proposal is to add 1 more bedroom.
Why?
Because this shed is really just sort of useless,
Take
and
it down.
it's.
Why wouldn't you just take the shed down?
Well, because you get more rent if you have another house, another bedroom. That's the reason. A 3-bedroom house, apartment is easier to rent than a 2-bedroom. You can speak more to that than I can. But the idea was really to make this shed just look like it was always there. Right now, there's this opening. We would just continue this shiplap siding across, put a window in that matched the windows of the rest of the house, which are 9/9. I think I didn't draw it that way, but I should have. And it needs to be the right size for egress, which is the same size as all the other ground floor windows, because these windows are all very large and all big enough for egress.
Honestly, the shed has been there. It would make a really cool little bedroom off of the apartment. We're not adding on. We're really talking about working within the confines of what's there.
Yeah, we're not. Yeah, it's there, and it seems. Why not use it? It's not terribly useful the way it is now. We're also adding a powder room on the main level and another bathroom and some hall space on the basement level. In terms of materials, everything, we want it to look just the same as it does now. That's match everything, white trim, probably keep the blue shutters.
So I would like to see the 4 parking spaces delineated.
There's, they are, where's my There's 2 in the garage, and there's 2 right along here.
And they're shown as parking spaces, not
Yes.
just the...
We can paint
Yes,
them.
they're here.
Yeah, we can paint them.
P1,
Yeah.
P2.
Yeah.
They're there.
I don't think that's what I'm looking for, but...
Just to understand, currently there are 2 apartments?
No, there had been 2 apartments until, I don't know, there was a violation and they removed them, and there hasn't been 2 apartments for
Historically, there would have been a servants' quarters down
Yeah, this
here,
was-
and there would have been a separate entrance
Right.
here.
It-
Like,
it
the sort
appears
of
that
grand old
that's
home
right.
is up here,
Right.
which is
And then-
where hopefully I'll be living. And then there was another entrance here, which was servants' quarters, but it's
Right. Now,
quite a
with
nice
that-
servants' quarters.
So you're saying basically the basement level is sort of halfway underground and is there access out?
About 80% above ground. I mean, you see
Yeah.
there's windows on all sides except
Okay,
one.
so
All
that's
of these
considered-
windows are that
Yeah.
basement level.
I
It's
mean,
not
the
really a
basement-
basement.
the basement level has
Considered the
river
lower
view.
It's
level.
barely a basement.
It's considered the lower level,
Yeah,
the
yeah.
same way as
There's a
you have in
mechanical room and-
brownstone.
yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So it's, I mean, it's a gorgeous apartment. It would have its own, it would have its own front porch. It's got river views, and then the upstairs, you go around to this door. It would have its own entrance. It's really an opportunity to make quite a nice home down there.
So that, of course, you would necessitate a permit for that, to create, permit into 2 apartments.
Yes.
Right.
Yep.
I mean, we're in a 2-family zone, but that's a conditional use.
It is conditional.
But we're on a, pretty big lot, of course.
The irony, if there were no house there, it would be a permitted
That's right.
to build 2 families.
Yeah.
Because it isn't 2 families, to make it one, the anomaly of the zone.
Right. That's right.
It's pretty mysterious.
My head
Pretty
around
mysterious.
those, yeah.
Okay.
And the fact that we don't have an accessory apartment component.
Yeah.
Okay, so, again,
I have an issue with the shed. You know, it is definitely attached in a way, and I don't think it's in keeping with the house
Yeah, but
itself.
it's been there since 1950, it's a legal shed.
That I understand, but I still, architecturally, it's not in keeping with the house. And whatever was done in the 50s may not have even been thought of as trying to be in keeping with the house.
There are some original walls to it that look like, I think they're way past the 50s. I mean,
It has a, it's weird because it has a stone foundation that is almost certainly part of the original
Right.
house. But I do, but
I think the kitchen,
roof
the old
structure
kitchen
may
was
be
there, and
new.
I think they probably did prep
Yeah.
work over in the shed.
It may have been smaller,
but-
may have been where the ice delivery happened, you know, it's hard to tell exactly what's going on because it definitely was somewhat rebuilt.
I think finishes could definitely, finishes could change it, and you're also suggesting changing the window and adding a bigger window. Are you changing any of that? I couldn't really see that.
Well, it's not that we're changing, well, we're removing this weird little garage window.
Yes.
This window stays, and we're just putting a window here. If you put a bedroom in, you need an egress window.
Right, but just like,
I mean, any
where do
thought-
I mean, just see that on the plan, where do you have that on the plan?
I mean, any
On the
thought
proposed?
of introducing maybe brick to that finish or something to kind of maybe have it blend in a little bit better? Or?
Well, I mean, I'm not
The
sure that,
bedroom's
I mean,
here.
if you look at the other door here, it's also white.
Right.
This is white. There's quite a bit of white trim going on in the house.
I
mean,
don't
that's how I found it, that's
from
how
the front of the
bought it.
house, you can't see it from this side of the house, that's the roof, you know, it's behind here. And when you look from here, it's actually, the shed is blocked by this two-story,
I guess the.
and you can't see it from
You
the street.
also actually can't see it from.
I mean, no one can see it from anywhere around.
Ty has an interesting point, though, I think, in that it's a utilitarian addition.
Yeah, it was made that way.
And if there's something cosmetically that you can do to make it feel like it wasn't just extra lumber that somebody put up, that would be helpful.
Yeah.
I'm actually kind of surprised it's still there, because I actually know the previous owner.
Did they have leftover lumber?
And I don't have a real clear picture of, do I have a picture of that other entrance? Yes. And that other entrance looks like it's stucco.
No, this is,
What is that?
this is wood boards.
It's wood board.
Mhm.
And it has a curved roof and
Yep,
whatever,
yep.
yeah.
Right.
I
I mean, I
that
could
doesn't-
change
that
the
doesn't
color
look
to match the
original
shutters.
either.
I mean,
Yeah,
I'm not married to
I
it.
think part of it, I think you may be on something, I think part of it is it stands out as this white thing attached. to
Right.
it,
Yeah.
sort of
Yeah.
like
But
brick.
you can see in this
If you
photo
just
how,
made that sort of go
Right.
away,
Yeah.
and it would bring the building out.
yeah.
Okay.
I mean, you're the only guy
Right.
who's going to see this.
No, I know.
exactly where the house is.
Right, exactly.
But
But
I
this
think-
photo shows you.
Yeah.
And I mean, in fact, I think, I don't wanna, but as you can see, you hardly see it. And if we plan just a few bushes there, you know, because right now it looks a little bare because of
Well,
the.
I think
it's
you
like a
figure it
wall.
out. I mean, you got to look at it.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
you know, I think you're on the right track. You know, if it sort of went, if it sort of went into the, faded away a little bit and the building stood out, this is a great building. And
I
this
mean-
is sort of like, well, let's put this up kind of thing.
Right, exactly. And I even think that other rear entrance, that is not original either.
I don't think so
of course.
either, but I mean,
So
you know,
if you
it's-
are, you know, doing this to, you know, and you're gonna live in part of it, I would invest a little bit time and effort in making those two part of the building more cohesive to the architecture of the Italian neighborhood that we have. Because I think this is a beautiful building, and
Yeah,
I
it's
would
gorgeous.
love to
It's-
see
it's
this,
gorgeous,
you know,
yeah.
be restored, and, I mean, it is in good shape already, it looks like. But I would say, make that not an appendix. And we have two appendices here,
Mm-hmm.
and you have an opportunity to to
I
make
think
it
color will go along with
be part of.
So you
of the
think
house.
match the color of it to the blue shutters
Yeah,
and the trim?
and
I mean, I'm fine with,
there's
I have
something-
to scrape and paint the shutters anyway, so it's not
Yeah, I
like.
think if you, I mean, I think you stand back and look at it and say, what would I do?
Right, I
Right.
mean, there, I don't know if you really have to do anything with the roof line, but there is no overhang on this roof. It's sitting boom right there. I mean, if that roof is in good shape, that's a lot, maybe
Yeah,
it needs
it's
to
a
be
new
changed.
roof.
But there's just some, it just seems like it doesn't belong.
I think you're on the right track.
Yeah, I think it's
Okay.
actually kind
Okay.
of, I think it's unique, and I think, there's something charming about that as well, so I
It's
don't have a
charming
big
by
problem.
default.
Yeah, I don't have any problem.
But I think the buildings of this era often did have little outbuildings, attached or not attached, that really didn't necessarily go with it. You were supposed to look at the facade and just kind of not notice the stuff behind them. That's very typical of this era. I think that I'm, to some extent, I'm lying by trying to make it match.
We didn't say match.
Yeah.
I didn't say.
No, he
Yeah.
said you
Well,
pick up the
starting
color
to
of the
add,
shutters, which
yeah,
I'm
but
fine
like,
with.
Now, it's
yeah,
the
that I
single
can
thing
do.
that your eye
Yeah.
goes to.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is the
And
single
I don't
thing.
think that's what you want.
right.
Right? So that's really, I think, what we're talking about. Now figure out how to move your eye to the sites you care about. And the only other thing is.
Yeah, I just don't want to brick face it, because I think
No,
it'll
I
look
don't
cheap.
think that- I don't think
Yeah.
that's what you need to do.
Yeah, no, I don't,
Yeah.
I would be against that, and
I don't know.
I think that the angle does match, I believe, the one up there.
Yeah,
I mean, they tried.
I'm just enjoying the
Yeah.
esoteric
Yeah.
dialogue.
But this is really the only angle from which you can even
By all
see
the
this
lines.
shed. I truly, when you come up
For
the
what
driveway,
level
you don't
walk
see it.
over.
Because you have to go all the way around the building.
I think we got it. The only thing
Yeah.
is that dotted lines to me
Uh-huh.
mean something in the future.
Uh-huh.
The parking,
Oh, I can,
not dotted lines.
fine.
That's why I was.
I could do that. I could put little
Okay.
double stripes and
So
put
that
numbers,
being said,
We have room to park a lot more cars.
Yeah,
than
yeah, there's
cars.
photos of like
I mean,
6
it's-
cars in that
it's like
driveway.
it's like a
Yeah.
landing strip. It's
Yeah.
actually, it's a little bit too big for me, to tell you
Yeah,
the truth.
yeah,
but
yeah,
I-
no, there's
it's what I
aerial
got.
photos where there's 6
Yeah.
photos in there from, 2007.
back in the last century, there were a set of twins that lived in that house.
Oh, yeah.
And they were both concert pianists. And because of where you are, you could hear them whenever they played. In the
Oh.
entire neighborhood. I actually grew up.
That sounds very nice.
Well, I'm actually moving my father's baby grand piano.
So maybe you'll get concerts again.
The
So-
neighbors and, well, the people at Victoria Home will be happy to hear that in the spring and fall. And later.
I don't play well, but
But they may
I've got hopes for my daughter.
I was waiting for you to say, and you can still hear them today.
Oh, yeah. I haven't heard any ghosts, have you?
So,
But on behalf of old dads everywhere, when I hit 55, my daughter will still be school age.
No, I'm right there with you.
okay.
Just one thing, we are west of Route 9.
Right.
So this may require a referral to the EAC.
Not as a footprint, there's no footprint modification.
But it's also, well, I just want to, you can condition, if it doesn't, then that part of it gets, I just want to put that there to
I'd
make
like
sure.
to settle our.
Yeah, I think you can settle tonight, but I just want to let you folks know that, I want to check that out.
Yeah, we don't want to skip the environmental advisory committee. Okay, so
He didn't
I
come up
think
with wild
we
animals, sorry.
can form do we have to do any short form of exec, because it's on
They
the
do,
side of
they
the
do both a
street?
long form and a short form.
They did both, okay,
Yes.
so we'll find it satisfactory.
Yes.
Okay, include that in the resolution.
Shall.
And is there somebody willing to form a motion that approves the conditional use to convert the single-family home to a two-family? Oh, before we do that, I forgot, is anybody here to speak to this tonight? No? Okay, so now, to convert this to a two-family home from a single-family home.
I'll make the motion.
Jeff?
I'll second it.
With the modifications we discussed, which are just color of the bedroom addition and delineating parking. It makes it obvious. Okay.
Can do.
And Jeff was moved, second was who? Mike, all in favor?
Aye.
Oh, carried, great.
Okay, great, thank you very much.
All right. Did JB show up?
I see him in the back. Yeah, 170,
Right. So, just as JB gets set up here tonight, we're going to limit the discussion tonight to the architecture, because the engineering drawings, which we might otherwise have discussed, came in signed incorrectly. And so, well, and so we're going to remove that from tonight's agenda. But we wanted to give, in the interest of moving this application along, we wanted to give the applicant an opportunity to present any updates that he had in the architectural area.
Okay. For those who are familiar with the project, this is 173 North Highland. This is, I believe, the third or fourth time we're going to have this approval. We've been renewing the approval. The two major changes that we have on this project right now, from our point, is that to address, this used to be 4 lots. And we're going to create 2 lots out of that. So we're going to separate the main building and the snack shop and gas station. So we're going to have a total of, we're going to do a lot line adjustment. So there are 2 separate lots. And there will be an easement for egress and ingress for the gas station, snack shop, through the main entrance. So that will be the same, the site plan will be the same, which is now we're going to have 2 lots instead of what was original 4, we're going to merge into 1. So, and what we have shown you, what we're giving you the plans is that...
Say that again.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have...
How many lots do you have today?
There's 4 lots that will be merged into 1.
And you're going to merge it into 1? But
Well,
you're not now.
we're doing a lot line adjustment, there will be 2 lots left out of 4.
So at the end of the day, you're going to go from 4 lots to 2 lots.
Yes.
1 lot will be will be what's the current large building used to be,
Yes.
currently or formerly the furniture building, right?
Yes.
And lot 2 will be where the old gas station was and the 2 houses in the front?
Yes.
Got
So,
it.
so that actually reverse, lot 1 will be the small lot and lot 2. We have changed the zoning table to identify the, that we meet all the setbacks and also the parking
Any of the
requirements.
front lots going to be adjoined to the rear lot?
There is, there's gonna be part of this second lot that will be adjoined to this. So you have 4 tax lots right now. They're all owned by the same owner, different name entities, and we're gonna have 2 lots at the end of the day.
No change in the improvements, JB?
No, there's one change that the 2 lots, the other change is that we used to have proposed a gym on the first floor. Now we also proposing that to be self-storage as well.
So no more.
Gym on the first floor.
So it's the fact that there was another plan that had that, and then this has been moved back and forth.
Yes.
I got it, okay. I understand, all right. Now so let's talk about how the construction's going to be finished.
Okay. This would be phase 1,
So the gas station, the donut shop or whatever it's gonna be, is
Right.
gonna start first?
It will start first, the 2 of them will be very close together because the system building, we should do the interior work, and we need to do the site improvements here. So it will be 1 and 2 separate permits, but they'll be concurrent. Not concurrent, but
I got it, okay.
close to each other.
Now, so the parking,
Mm-hmm.
What's driving the large requirement for parking?
Self-storage. We have more than requirement.
Is the entire building gonna be self-storage now?
Yes,
No other retail uses anymore?
No
You said
other
the gym is
retail.
gone and there was
right.
potentially gonna be,
Potential, the first one was either gonna be gym or retail, so now it's all gonna be self-storage.
So the remaining parking exceeds the zoning requirement
Yes.
for that use?
We have,
Why would you do that?
Because it's there.
yeah.
But it's not there. They gotta build most of it.
Well, this area, I mean, we increased the green area, but this area is all here, this is future parking, so.
But that's there.
Right, there, this is all here, and this is what it used to be the old gas station.
Yeah, right. I guess it's better than what's there.
Well, I mean, I'm sorry, were we limiting, what were we limiting
No,
the
this
discussion?
is part of it.
Okay.
Not the one engineer.
So I need to pull the reins up, is that what you're suggesting?
Okay.
But it is a valid point, you were headed down the valid.
No, I think it's part of the site plan, right?
She said reduce some of these parking spaces and convert them into green.
Well, apparently we're gonna talk about that on another.
Okay. All right, well, you guys know what's marketable. I wasn't looking for the gym anyway. Okay, thank you. Okay, anything else? That's it? Okay. Anybody here in the audience have any questions? If not, we'll adjourn this and tell them for next month. Thank you. Okay.
So we're not gonna talk about the.
There was nothing to look
Okay.
at. It didn't change.
Except for they're having, major.
There's no more retail.
No more retail, and we're having, parking at the top of.
Well, that's the bar we have to get into.
Right, okay, all right.
Okay. Did that one? Snowden Holdings next? Snowden Holdings?
Yes.
Good.
Yeah.
Good evening, Village, Board, Chairman Board. My name's William DeVore. I'm with Riverwalk Residents LLC. My name's William DeVore. I'm with Riverwalk Residents LLC. I'm here tonight to talk about a project that I started back in 2005, 2006, and what we've done over the period of years. At one time, this was on the PRD zone, and I was going to look to do multi-cluster townhomes. It was with the recommendation of the planning board to conserve the land and to put one building up front to conserve the land use. So with that in mind, we went along with one building structure up front and to put in the Riverwalk with some public parking and to dedicate back the land for conservation use for park and recreation. So I'm here tonight to show you the current plan and to bring this back up to date and to introduce my development team that's going to proceed forward. So I'd like to introduce to you Daniel Lau, my attorney, Nick Faustini, my architect, and Shalish Nayak, my planner and engineer. So if you gentlemen would please come up and introduce yourselves. I think that's it. Okay.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Again, for the record, Daniel Lau with the firm of Cuddy and Fader, representing Mr. DeVore and Riverwalk LLC in this matter. Just to sort of bring you into the loop, Mr. DeVore called us last week and asked us to appear at this meeting. We had previously represented him on the transaction of the property. And he asked, and then he said, we have submitted before the planning board, and they put me on the agenda, so we'd like to appear next week, so he asked us to do that. And just as a bit of background, I then made sure that Corporation Counsel Kahan knew that I would be appearing, and he did ask for a letter of authorization because the property is actually under, is basically, there's a negotiated agreement that if the approvals are obtained, then the property will be closed on. So for now, Riverview is is a contract vendee. We do have a letter of authorization that Mr. Kahan asked for, and I just want to present that. I have the original and the copies.
Thank you.
So I do know that Mr. DeVore has spoken with the village previously about concepts for this property, and this is the latest iteration. By no means do we think it's do have all the complete information, but we felt it was maybe a good time to have a dialogue about where the project design is. Just to go over the rudiments of the project. It is in total it's approximately a 6.1 acre parcel. Approximately 2.65 acres of the rear portion would be dedicated for conservation purposes. As you proceed down Snowden Avenue, this is near the intersection with Van Wyck. The front elevation up here is approximately 156 feet. And then as you go to the front of the building, as currently envisioned, that would probably be approximately, the ground level would be approximately 96 feet. So it's approximately a 60 feet drop in elevation going towards the river from Snowden. In total, it's proposed at 65 units. That would be 19 two-bedroom, 21 two bedrooms. 2 of those would be affordable. Then there would be a 44 total single bedrooms.
What was that? 19 market rate, 1 bedrooms.
Yes, 19 one bedrooms.
With 2 affordable, and then 42 bedrooms with 4 affordable.
So it's 21 and 44 for a total of 65. There is parking proposed around the building as well as inside the building. It's proposed to have at-grade parking as well as inside, around the building as well as inside. So basically the first level of the building is dedicated for parking, and then there's then the actually multifamily units begin on the 2nd floor and go up from there. There is as Bill mentioned, there is a proposal for a dedicated trailway that will lead to the rear of the property. Behind us is publicly owned property, and then the Krawbucky Preserve on up to the north. There is a tennis court and a pool and a small pool house also proposed, small clubhouse proposed to the rear of the property, to the rear of the development before the dedicated area for access. That will be preserved. At the front of the property where there is access, it's proposed to have parking spaces that will be available for public use, so that people may park there and then access the walkway to the rear of the property. That's sort of the general overview of the proposal is now, and I think some of you are probably more familiar with it than even perhaps I am, as you've seen it over the years. But again, we're sort of in the initial phase, and I know we have a lot more information to provide to the village board, to the village planning board, moving forward. I just figured this was a good point to commence that dialogue.
Since it seems like this part of the village is now up for possible development, several different parcels. Is it possible for us, since we now have an opportunity to see these different proposals topographically, to maybe see, because you were talking about a
Mhm.
connection to Pro Bucky, so is another proposal that's coming up later tonight. And we have, we have three major components that all will be connecting into Pro Bucky. So I'm thinking, from the board's perspective, we have a really unique opportunity right now to look at the topography issues, the connectivity with the trailways between these three proposals, almost at the same time. It does not really affect anything I see that you're proposing in terms of massing, and that's a different discussion.
Mhm.
But I would really like for us to be able to see this as a cohesive, as a holistic approach. Now we have the opportunity to do so.
Yes, we can actually call up the county GIS now
We can.
and see these parcels that would be, give an introduction to the notion that Kai is suggesting, and put it in its context. Let's just start with attachment 1. And not to immediately pivot into the mundane, but I'm just trying to bring myself up to speed memory-wise. And perhaps then understand some other peripheral avenues the project has taken, or perhaps I'm misunderstanding some of the characterization. So in attachment 1, March 8, 2018, what is the reference date, January 19th, 2016, under the CC? So what is that in reference to? Bill?
Yes. 2016 is when I informally came back in to start the project back up.
Okay.
I originally started the project in 2005, 2006.
I recall.
Then I picked the project back up in 2016. And then since then, I've been working on the project with the village and
So when you say with the village, what is that? Can you clarify that?
I've had work sessions with Kellogg Sessions, with the village planning board, with the mayor, with some of the managers, trying to possibly look at the avenues of doing like a 30, 60, 90 market rate rental project, which was denied from the board of trustees. They prefer to keep this as a condo project. So this is the route that we're going. And that's pretty much, I really have been looking to make this as a condo project anyways. So it's a market rate project, and so with that in mind, then we continue the project.
So you've been before this board since 2016? And forgive me if I don't recall.
I was informally in front of the board in 2016.
I don't remember.
I have some minutes and records.
Okay. And the dialogue, so and forgive me, because I don't remember this coming back in 2016. And in the paragraph, at the time, while collectively working with the Village of Ossining and the Village Planning, we're trying to build a master cluster townhouse type development, which is cited in the best interest for the Village of Ossining to conserve the land, construct one building. So is that a true statement? That seems like a very overarching, broad statement that I'm not sure how you come to that conclusion.
Not to interrupt you, but when I started this project, it was a recommendation of Roger Pelleton, who was on this board at one time. And when we started working with this project, this particular project...
Can I just,
yes.
I've been on this board for 25 years and Roger hasn't been on this board since. I've been on this board 27.
Yes, I know.
And Roger hasn't been on this board in 27 years.
Well, Roger started the project with me and was a PRD zone at that time.
Roger clearly appeared here.
Yes.
For another iteration of this application.
Well, it was a PRD zone at that time. We were looking to do the multi-cluster townhomes, which was conforming to the PRD zone. After the village walked the site, and it was with the recommendation from the village board that we put up one cluster, which also triggered the revitalization of the master village map. So it was changed to a CDD zone in the process while I was developing this project with multi-cluster townhomes. And then at that time, I was advised to put up one building with the Riverwalk, and that's when it was a non-conforming building at that time, to put up the one structure. And that was this particular plan here,
These are proposed as rentals now?
market, condos.
These are for sale condos?
Yes. This was the plan back then. After I spent a year and a half in front of the board with multi-cluster townhomes, and the village walked the site, and that's when the CDD came into play. And so we agreed.
Which board were you at a year and a half?
I was in front of this board for a year and a half, back in 2005, 2006, formally.
Yeah,
But this
So this
version
was-
was from when?
I don't remember being that long.
It might have been with the
Yeah.
design
But-
iteration.
And this latter one, was that in 2016?
Yeah, so this was to be dedicated back to the village. The one cluster was here.
But when was this particular drawing done?
2005, 2006.
That's from 2005?
That's from 2005.
Yes, yes.
Okay, and what did you present in 2016 that you, and which board were recommending to you that it should be, I mean, I'm not
Well,
quite following this.
No, in 2016, I came here informally in front of the board and started working on this project again.
Okay.
Okay.
So after work sessions with the building department and Kellogg sessions and the planning board, it was preferred that we come in from Snowden Avenue to move the building up from so there's just parking around for the fire department, to eliminate the double curb cuts, to have one curb cut. So all that's been taken, that's all been in consideration, along with recreational use.
So I have some vague recollection of the original townhouse proposal. I think there were some 23 or so units. And the issue was the topography. And that it was an observation that you actually couldn't build at that point in time anything other than the maximum of 35 feet, 2.5-story buildings, because of the, I guess you said, the PRD zone. And there was no other avenue for you to pursue because there was no CDD district, right, Conservation Design District at that time. And then I do recall that we thought that rather than spreading them across the entire site, that you could use part of the site if you had more height. Less buildings, more height. I have no independent recollection of me or this board recommending a single building in a particular spot, nor do I recall, especially me, saying that we should, as the village, accept property back from the developer when it's clearly part of the calculation of the density. That's sort of a gimme, right? I don't know why we would ever do that. Plus, we became the maintenance, the liability, all that.
Right.
Whereas if it were part of the conservation district and the village had access to it, everything remains whole.
Right.
So I don't, you may have had that agreement with another board, but it wasn't this board.
I agree, Mr. Chairman. I think in looking at it, again, my eyes are a little fresh on this, but I was thinking the same way, that if this was going to be dedicated, it would be, or conserved, the best avenue would probably be keeping the, whatever's done is do a conservation easement that allows public access through the river walk to the back.
Well, that's besides.
Something
So,
like
okay.
that.
So then, so the other, and I know, you know, this is early on, and it may not be the right, you're always the right person to address, but right now, if it's the conservation district, it's a maximum of 8 units to the 8 units. Say you have 6 acres nominally, that's 6 times 8 is 48. You want 65. How do you get there without a variance?
There are some density bonuses allowed.
Not that many.
So, no, not that many, so I think it would require a variance for that number.
Okay.
So, you're, yeah, correct, but,
All right. Okay.
And I'm not criticizing where you are today, because I haven't evaluated where you are today. I just, if I were to personally read the narrative thread throughout the attachments, I would walk away with the notion that there's been this long, calculated, well-vetted, well-inputted trajectory to where you got today. And I'm missing all that. And I've been here a long time. And again, that's not a criticism, other than I think it's a little miscast in the narrative. Fairly or unfairly, and maybe I'm misreading it. And again, it's neither here nor there, because you're here today with this. But I don't know that this represents the trajectory you're portraying here. Is that a fair statement? Am I making sense here?
I'm just, I've been doing what the village has asked me to do, when I was here to do.
But which part of the village? We're trying to figure out what board, what part of the village that you have had all this continuous, conversation with and getting recommendations from.
Well, I was a year and a half in front of the board with multi-cluster townhomes, and then it was put to do a one, well, at the time, it was a 4-story, but it was proposed 5-story because of the ground floor parking.
Is that the village board?
But the village board or the planning board?
The village planning board.
This is us.
Yes.
I don't think that
Mr.
ever-
Clark, I have your
I don't think that ever really went anywhere.
Well, no, I mean, we're not gonna litigate this
No,
here.
no.
I'm just suggesting,
This was
I
what-
do remember the townhome project some time ago. I do remember, I think,
This was-
the fairly superficial discussion about the challenges of a site plan that's cast about the site, and that condensing the notion into a more compact footprint or set of footprints was clearly a part of the dialogue. But I don't ever recall going, you know what, you need to make that one building, and let's start from there.
I mean, typically, when we look at something of this scale, there'd be engineering reports, there'd be a traffic study. I don't remember any of that. I remember, like what you guys have just said, like there was some superficial talk about.
Just, and Michael, maybe I can help just a little bit here. First, I know that Mr. DeVore was in contact with my predecessor on various issues relating to some of these iterations. I met with him, that was more in terms of financing a project, and there was a discussion with the Board of Trustees as to that. There's never a discussion with the Board of Trustees as to one building versus clusters. I can just go in terms of just dates for some of you folks. A draft scope for the DEIS, which at that time the project was called Residential Development of Eastland Development Corp. That was June 5th of 2006. The scoping hearing at that time, which was attended, Chairman Beldotti, you were here, the other members who are sitting here now were not. That was on June 14th of 2006. And the scope, looks like the scope that I'm looking at here is July 24th, 2006, but there was never a DEIS prepared. It didn't, basically there was nothing after that. And then we have, the situation now with this has come before us now. I believe the letter that is March 8th was originally a letter that was addressed to my predecessor and just was changed to reflect the current date and my name as Corporation Counsel, because I do know that Ms. Dixon did have communications with Mr. DeVore in 2016, and I met with him shortly after I started in 2017 with regard to the project, which he was proposing at that point, and then it was a brief discussion with the Board of Trustees on a financing issue, which was the point then.
So my notion is to not challenge where you are tonight. All I want to do is make sure we're all on the same page regarding what the legacy of this may or may not be, and frankly, who really cares? You're here today with the new application. And so why muddy the water with trying to recreate a 12-year trajectory of how you got to where you are today? When we're not clear how.
So how would you like to proceed, considering that this appears to hinge on a very large variance, to say the least, right? We can deliberate, get into it with your engineers, your architects, and go down that road. But at some point, you've got to stare the Board of Zoning Appeals in the eye.
Certainly. Well, I think from the start, obviously because of the moving parts that are involved, I think it would be beneficial to the applicant to have at least first impression ideas about where this is at, regardless of where the legacy may or may not have gone or been. But I think that's what I was hoping, a picture, some sort of picture of where the board today
I think
is
it's fair
with
ask.
it. Yeah.
It's got bogged down in the 4 or 5 pages of
I think that would be the
run-up narrative.
Sure, understood. And I thank Mr. Gahn for the explanation regarding the prior minutes, which were helpful, prior procedure. But I think for right now, some sense of reaction from the board and thoughts.
Well,
Let's have the current plan on the easel. Okay, does somebody want to walk us through the?
So,
Maybe the planner?
I have my planner, he's been working with me, the architect.
Let's begin with the planner and the architect.
Hi, my name is Nick Faustini, I'm an architect. Recently been engaged to assist with the project. It's as he mentioned, a 65-unit building. I'm just going to go through what he had mentioned earlier. 65-unit building, approximately located 60 feet lower than street level because the topography descends. The footprint is 22,000 square feet. It's a garage level above ground. So the garage level is at first floor level. And then we have 4 stories above that, 22,000 square feet each. The breakdown in the units, as the other gentleman had mentioned, it is 44 two-bedroom units and 21 one-bedroom units. The perimeter of the intent right now is to have the apartment units wrap around the perimeter of the building, all with balconies, small balconies off each unit. There is a courtyard in the back with exterior views towards the river. And then I believe there were previous conversations about exterior parking and parking being underground, so all of that will be wrapping around the building. As the other gentleman also had mentioned, there's a clubhouse, pool, and a tennis court. The topography starts to climb here again. So the views really aren't, they're not in this direction, they're actually in that direction. So the building will have views here because the topography descends here and it climbs back here. So you really can't see the river here, but you will see it in this direction.
I think it's important you kind of tell us the direction, if it's north, south, east, west. I mean,
this plan north, the river is back, over here.
Pretty light.
I'm not sure you see much of anything.
Yeah, it's a valley, basically. This is a valley
I mean, you gotta look
in this
at,
area.
you got a what, 60-foot building that you gotta look at on, some, like snow houses, whatever we call it.
That's
okay.
Down here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So are you closer to the river than that? Are you set back that far?
There's another property here.
Yeah, I know, but I know where, I know this is Snowden House right here. But I don't think, I guess you're set about evenly back.
Yeah, it's about even.
Yeah. Okay.
You can see where Van Wyck comes in right there next to Snowden House, right? That's Van Wyck, and it's right where the cursor is. So you'd be looking down towards the river. Those would be your views.
Okay. All right.
So from northerly edge to southerly edge of the parking, the portion of the access road on the northerly side and the portion that peaks out on the southerly side, is that one big flat plinth?
This here?
Yes. Or a facsimile of a big?
Right now it's schematic design phase, so at this point we'll try to keep it relatively at the same elevation, but it'll probably change. It's still a schematic design. Yeah.
This is not, first snapshot, first reaction. If I put my pen over the word residence from here, it looks like a big box store. And the approach road is kind of rigid and institutional like a big box store, and the footprint looks. Now maybe, again, maybe it's because it's a very diagrammatic footprint on the site plan, and we don't understand the massing of the building, and there is a vision that that's not being communicated here, and I completely understand that. But again, they're just, in first take, it's to suggest it might be a little heavy-handed on that site. Maybe that's fair, at least from what I'm gathering here.
I think the intent of the application, as council had mentioned, or as Mr. DeVore's, as Dan had mentioned, is that we wanted to get a sense from the board of if the scale is kind of in the direction that they would be comfortable with. And again, this is schematic, as schematic can be.
I understand.
So it will be developed, it will be articulated in plan view and exterior elevation. So at this point, it's really, as you had mentioned about the variances, and at some point we'll have to go in that direction. As a 65-unit building on a 6-acre site, we kind of wanted to get your feedback at this point.
What would it look like if you met the zoning requirement?
Yeah.
I suppose that would be, as you had mentioned, a 48-unit building.
No, but I'm saying, since John asked about sort of what it
scale of
feels
the
like
footprint,
when you
right.
fill
Right.
when you fill the developable area with a building, and I get what you did, right? But if you said, okay, so now I still know that's the best place to build this building, but I'm gonna create a footprint at the ordinance. That's, I think, the question, right? Because if you're gonna go get a variance, they're also gonna wanna understand why. Right? And I'll leave that to you guys to figure out how to sell this for the appeal.
I mean,
But I think you gotta sell it to us first.
yeah. Is it going to be condos?
Yes, that's my
Yeah,
understanding.
okay. So, looking at the topography, looking at the side view you have to the river, if I was going to buy a unit here, 1 or 2 bedrooms, I would never want to be in any of the sections in the back. No way. I mean, right there, you've lost your income, your ability to sell. What I could see here is you have it terracing up here. You can create a terracing back, and you can create more than just little balconies. You know, I don't mean to say that you should go and look at some of the, you know, flagship architecture in New York City, but the whole point of swooping and setting back and giving people private spaces that are almost small, like garden areas, in and connected to their units is now well established as good design overall, Denmark, wherever you want to go. This is an excellent opportunity to do something like that, where you work with the scale of the topography and you work with increasing the value of the units that people are going to buy, and stick closer to what we are allowing here. So I'm in complete agreement with Joe Clark about the fact that, you know, this, you know, the way that is laid out with parking right underneath, there's many things here that could be made much more inducive. and conducive to the site itself. So I think, again, back to my pet peeve, which is, if we are going to approve major projects in this zone, this and others, it means that we have to really look at, and whoever you should look at, and have the excitement and the challenge of looking at this from a topographical point of view as well, not just flat two-dimensional. So I agree, it does look like IKEA could move in here.
It would be the intent to move in that direction. So I agree, I completely, and that's actually why I'm here, is to get your feedback. And the intent would be to develop those views, to give you topographical elevation sections, to show you what the relationship is from the street and the river. So that, I agree completely with what you're saying. And I'm not saying this is what I want to prove tonight. I'm just saying that's basically where we want to go.
I think, yeah, I mean, so let's get, anyone else, Mike, Jeff, Walter, any comment? Play, contemplate. I'm sorry.
No, I don't think there's enough really to comment on at this point.
Yes, that works. That works. I think there's some direction you
Yeah.
have, right?
But I agree with Kai's comments as well. And I think the other thing is here that it just stands out to me is it's not just, this is going to be for the zoning board, but you want to do 72 feet, 5 stories, where the zoning is 48 feet. So this is the Conservation Development District. There's, a legislative intent to have, to preserve this place as a natural place. So, I mean, those are things that are going through my head when I'm thinking about how this fits in the context of that. But again, it's not a whole lot to comment on at this point, because it's a 2D.
Okay.
Joe, I'm a little reluctant to give them marketing advice, but I think it looks like a sound project.
Okay. All right, any comments from the public? No, if not, I think we're good for now.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time for basically a brainstorming session.
Yeah.
So, no, we appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for coming in. 14 Church Street. They're here. This is an interesting. Commercial spaces going into residential in the downtown
Talked to your shop.
No, I think it was Monday.
It was half a minute.
Okay.
Good evening. My name is Lou DeMacy. I'm the architect for the applicant Angelo Tradidio. What we're looking to do is convert the existing office space. It's 14 Church Street. It's right behind Lucy's Pizza. It's a brick building, 2 stories. On the first story, we're going to keep that as office space. It seems to be working well for the applicant right now. The second story is a bit of a problem, hard to rent. So we came up with the idea of possibly converting the office space into apartments, small apartments. Looking to do 1, 2, 3, 4 apartments, a 2-bedroom, 2 1-bedrooms, and a studio apartment in the front. So what we're asking tonight is a conditional use of that and also a waiving on the parking. There is no parking for this project. There was never any parking to begin with, and we're not going to be able to get any new parking.
So where would somebody park who lives there?
There's municipal parking down the street, and we're hoping that they could buy a nightly pass or monthly pass, however it works, and would park there.
Bit of a hike.
Bit of a hike, but it also, we're hoping...
Down in the morning.
What's that?
Not bad going down in the morning.
It's not. And Lucy's Pizza's up the street, so maybe get some energy from that. But, yeah, it's an idea that the applicant would like to try. Office space is just not working there. As you know, or may not know, there was doctor's offices there, and they all seem to have left.
Is there anything on the ground floor now?
There is not.
But the whole building's empty.
Whole building empty, but he's painting, refurbishing, new carpet, new flooring to get new tenants in there.
On the ground.
On the ground floor, correct.
So how do you get around the ADA issue with the second floor? Do you have an elevator or?
There's a chairlift right now on this part, and we're just gonna refurbish it.
But does ADA really apply if you?
Not for the residencies,
I
not.
think it's a nice idea.
Yeah.
That's how the heck we got people upstairs.
Yeah, right now for the doctor's office, you actually needed it, but for the residential part, we don't. So we're either gonna refurbish it or speak to the building inspector about possibly taking it
So
out.
what do you have, 1 2-bedroom?
A 2-bedroom, a 1-bedroom, and a studio.
And the sizes?
Sizes are such, the studio is 544, the 2 1-bedrooms are 642 and 736, and the 1 2-bedroom is 741. They conform.
Are they?
The 2-bedroom is just shy of everything else.
So,
450 for an
well, that's
efficient.
good to know, because I was thinking that maybe it ought to be 4 1-bedroom units.
Okay. It needs to be 750 for the 2-bedroom, so 741 is 9 square feet short.
So it might be 1 studio and 3 1-bedrooms.
Or 4 1-bedrooms.
The reason why it's not a 1-bedroom, because I don't have enough light in this space here, so I decided to keep it all open. That was the main reason. I would love to have an extra bedroom,
Yeah.
but it doesn't work.
Yeah, well, I think getting rid of the 2-bedroom is always a good idea. Because we don't have any parking.
Yeah, and that only drops the parking a half of parking space.
But it's almost like a 1-bedroom because you can't have the door, right? You can't have, is that what you're saying there? It functions as,
I separated it into 2 rooms. I would take out the 1 room, make it either one
Yeah.
bigger room or a bigger living room.
right.
So, there's another question, not for tonight, but the broader question is that it appears that commercial and retail downtown is rapidly converting to residential. And we had, I don't know, it was Malik, I don't know what it's called now. Where
Yeah.
they had the, well, even up on the corner where Malik was, that they couldn't make the office rentals go, and they converted it to 2. Right, and so we work our way down.
Which street was that on?
It's on Main Street.
On Main Street,
It
yeah.
used to be.
Because we successfully did on Clinton Street the same kind of concept. It was upstairs was an accountant's office, a very large accountant's office, and they couldn't get anybody to rent the space.
Okay, well, you wanted to do the downstairs across from the beauty parlor, too, right?
Across from the
And there's a beauty parlor in a hair salon.
Yeah, he's
on
gonna
Clinton
keep-
Avenue, And he took the
Yeah.
adjacent, right?
Yeah.
So now I think about 3/4 of that building is residential.
residential.
So that's kind of an interesting.
I think the phenomenon is people are more working from home, and we don't really need office spaces anymore, really.
Okay. So,
I mean, I personally actually think it's a good thing that we're getting this.
I think it'll create maybe some
Yeah.
disposable income
Yeah.
Downtown, which is always good. Any other questions from the board?
The mechanics, I'm sorry, go ahead.
So what's the thought on affordable aspect of this project? I mean, how many units?
Under 6.
No thought at all.
It's not required.
Under 6, Mike.
Yeah.
But if it's conditioned, we might have a little more latitude there, or?
I mean, it's under 6, so it's not mandated, so it's his option if he chose to provide it.
The mechanics of transferring a waiver, parking waiver for a previous space, is that what's being proposed here?
Yeah, 270, 30,
And-
number 12.
It's actually fewer parking spaces.
Yes.
Correct. That would have to be.
There's a mechanism to connect the dots on that.
Yeah, there's a section of the code that allows me to ask the planning board for a waiver.
In downtown, we can do that.
Yes.
So, but I think John is kind of a, you may have said, but as a retail doctor's office, how many parking spaces should they have had?
6.
6, and this drops it to 4.
5.
To 5.
And now with the one, dropping it down to 1 bedroom, I think I might be able to get it to 4. But for the sake of argument, we'll say 5.
Okay. And so to follow Michael's thread, since there appears to be an overwhelming need for affordable housing, could we request that you identify one of those units to meet?
I really need to speak to the owner, but it's 4 units. I mean, to do a quarter of it, of his income, that's kind of excessive.
Well, but it's a rental, it's not that big.
And truthfully, like, the gentleman's owned the property for a long time, and he...
No, this is a new owner.
Okay. But you buy it based on the fact that you know it's a commercial property, sort of...
Yeah, but knowing that you don't have to do affordable, that was the reason why he bought it.
Well, the whole concept of kind of switching to residential, you know, is something that we have purview over, so... I think it could be sold a little bit better, that's my opinion.
So, I'll tell you what, you sort of know where the board stands tonight, I think. Why don't you go back and ask your client?
Okay. Is that something that I would have to come back for?
Well, I don't think we can pass a resolution without.
Not with that condition, no.
Yeah. So I think, because it's a primary concern of the village.
Okay.
But it's not a secret, it's the subject of practically every board meeting.
So just one
So
apartment to be affordable?
Yep. And we can.
You could set the AMI.
We get the AMI at 80.
Because you'd be putting the
Right,
condition in.
that's right,
Yeah.
yeah.
At 80, not 60.
Right.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah, great, thank you.
Okay, so we'll adjourn this till next month. All
Very
right?
good, thank you.
Okay,
Comments from the public?
sure.
Thank you.
That way you don't have to come back next month.
Please, yeah. So I'm Lindsay Farrell. I've worked on Main Street for 30 years. So I park my car on Main Street every day, Monday through Friday for 30 years. The parking is dreadful. And I think it's dreadful for 2 reasons. The very large apartment complex that went up where the Kipps Pharmacy property was, and then there was a subsequent parking lot that is no longer there. And that landlord charges, I think, a fair amount to park your car in the ground floor. And so the tenants in that building don't park in that building. They buy tags from the village and they park in the municipal lot in the back. So that's one problem. There's another apartment complex, I think Pedro and Melita own it, and it's on Brandreth Street. And it doesn't have any parking either. And all of those folks park in the municipal lots. And so my organization buys hundreds of tags, and the village sells more tags than there are spots. And so we have a terrible parking problem on Main Street. So normally, I've been on the other side of these applications, and I understand how very difficult it is, but I felt compelled to come out tonight to let you hear from the horse's mouth. I have worked on Main Street for 33 years, and it has never been as bad as it is right now, never. And so it's extremely difficult during the day to get a parking spot. And we pay a lot for those tags, tens of thousands of dollars. And it's impossible to find a place to park. So I would hope that my remarks would be taken into consideration when granting a variance for parking on Main Street, or perhaps there's a way for the applicant to rent some other parking spot somewhere, Trinity Church, for example.
So, just to clarify, this isn't a variance for parking. It's a conversion of a use, which actually reduces the original allotted
Right.
waiver.
And if it was 5, I gotta tell you, Heckman and, I know the doctors in that building, they all park in the 2 Church Street lot, which they're not allowed to park there. They're not allowed to park there. They do, and occasionally there's towing, but I suspect there'll be more of that in the future.
I'm not challenging the real world
Yeah.
story you're sharing. I get it. We all get it. I'm just clarifying that there's no variance being granted.
Okay.
I'm curious about one thing you said, I mean, that the 145, 147 parking spaces that they have there for their tenants, so.
You have to pay money,
They have to pay.
yes,
And
to
it's-
park their cars there,
it's-
and so they don't. It's cheaper to just buy the tag from the village and park in the back.
The
So
answer to that is supposed to be no.
that,
Right, and so that's,
that's.
now we're hearing a trending story,
Yeah,
or a trending storyline that really is rightly or wrongly come to life in a pattern. And it directly, I think it's directly related to a site plan approval process. And where the notion previously of an applicant proposing parking, but the vetting that the parking actually wasn't gonna be provided as a part of the core rental of the, that it was à la carte, changes, I think, the lens for site plan
Well,
review.
there's more than that, and we've talked about this before, is that this is, we've learned because people are smarter than we learn by mistakes. And the other one is the recreation fees that we don't collect because they provide on-site recreation. And then they charge the tenants to
Right.
use the recreation.
Right.
Which does exactly what Lindsay just said, is it says, okay, we're all back to the community stuff because we're not gonna pay. And so you have to be smarter about how we approve these things.
Or
And
take
we
a
also
hard
need-
look at
we
the
also need a
notion of.
fee. We need a parking fee, like we have a recreation fee, which is only about 10 years in the making. Because if we have to construct parking, we need a way to pay for it. And it shouldn't be on the backs of everybody in the village of Austin to do that. It should be on the people driving
I don't know the number of the lots that are like on the aqueduct, right behind, you know, the open door. And I'm telling you, I jog at 6 o'clock in the morning, there are no spots, none. Those two lots are completely full.
Well utilized.
Yep,
Day
at
and
6
night.
o'clock in the morning.
Day and night.
Yes.
So people drive in, people drive out.
That's right.
Okay.
Down by the post office, I mean,
In theory, you
nothing,
have to
nothing.
That's probably why we sell so many tickets. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Anyone else? If not, we'll adjourn this till,
Can I answer that question, or is that something?
I don't think,
Yeah, really good.
if you have an answer, we need to get it.
Yeah, what we're looking to do is kind of offset the time that everybody's gonna be parking. You know, during the day,
But-
hopefully the residents will
but
be
it
out
doesn't
there.
actually work, because what happens is that the people who leave during the day, and they're filled, so it's never, there's never free. I think that's
the problem.
right?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is adjourned till next month.
Very good,
Okay.
thank you.
Moving on to Plateau Associates, I think. Oh, yeah, Plateau.
Going to yield my seat.
You are.
Either way.
You don't have to. Sit over
I'll
there.
sit here, Stuart.
You sure? Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chief.
All right. Mr. Barry.
Lindsay,
Great. Is this right here?
Is this what it's going to look like? Because that was a question.
Yes.
I'm going to use this. Get out of my chair.
Yes. Yes.
How do I, so it's a wireless mouse, so you could, just click on it.
Oh, each one?
One bigger?
No, no, no.
You could do this slideshow.
Next time we're in advance, and I'll make sure to copy you. I thought about this.
It's been a while since we started through 10 o'clock hour.
Good evening, Michael Zarin, Zarin Steinmetz, on behalf of Hidden Cove. So we just prepared a quick slideshow updating where we've been since the last meeting.
and I'm here tonight. We have principals, we have architects, we have engineers. So bear with me, I'm just going to get used to this. So you saw this slide last time. July and March, we did make 2 submissions on the FSEIS, but on subsequent to our last meeting, we had an excellent meeting with your consultants, engineer, legal, planning, legal on March 16th, and went over with them all the outstanding issues that had been lingering both substantively and procedurally on this matter. We made a extremely extensive submission on April 9th on the submission date in advance of tonight's meeting that all of you should have copies of. Engineers revised all the site plan drawings in response to a couple of the outstanding comment response letters from Keller Sessions that we had not responded to. We went through and updated the SWIP. We updated the site drawings in response to certain issues that were raised at that meeting with your consultants. We revised the FEIS, about 40, 50, 60 pages of the FSEIS were modified. I'll go through that. And we also provided a title letter per. We, as I mentioned, we revised the site plan drawings and got into a extensive amount of the technical engineering detail, grading, stormwater calculations, movement, turning movements in the garage. We covered each and every issue. We received, as you received, a technical memo today responding to that submission. I'll get into that a little later. That's just one of the site plan drawings, the main site plan drawing. That remains pretty much consistent from 2017. There were a lot of technical comments on that drawing that were revised, as well as we revised in particular the movements coming out of the parking lot for fire trucks, as well as fire trucks and how they interact with the garbage and the turnarounds and the radii and alike. That was one of the comments, one of the issues that were revised. As I said before, we got into extensive amount on the stormwater. I'll show you later on the road. That was the big issue. Did all the engineering on the road, all the revisions on the road, all the cuts, all the curb cuts, the FEMA revisions made to the road and cuts on the hill that were discussed with your consultants on the rock and the landscaping and what that would look like. The views of the building, that is subject to your input, what the building is proposed to look like. It's, as you see, it runs perpendicular to the water to expand the view sheds. That's been something there for a while. This was mentioned at the last hearing before your board. This is a rendering in response to a comment about a memorial, I guess, as you might, to the Brandreth Pill Factory Open Air Pavilion. That's a preliminary rendering.
The very first page for a minute.
The very first page?
The very first page. That, the very first, right there.
Okay.
Okay, now go back to the other drawing you showed us.
Okay. I'll let the architects address that, I think.
No,
You don't have to address it now, but it's different, right?
Yeah, the colors are different, the massing of the building and the location of how it sits.
Well, this
in
one
the,
looks like a
uh,
lot of glass, the other one didn't look like that. That's, we'll get into
Yeah,
that.
yeah. I think in terms of the purpose of showing the mass and how it.
I know, but, you know, we want to get to some end game.
I agree with that, totally. Let me go back to where I left off. Another view of the Pill Factory Open Air Pavilion using various of the materials from the demolition. Off-site improvements have always been part of the project. Improving North Water Street, new pavement, side water curbs, drainage are all now included in the plans. Our reconstructed road, we think, brings a fairly substantial public benefit. It is not the best road, provides access, Crobucky Preserve, complies with all the fire department public safety requirements, and we submit is in conformance with the existing easements, although I do have information to report on that. So this is the road, showing again the center road from the village lot, which I showed last time. I'm sorry, trying to get. This is the center road through the Conga property. That again has been now fully engineered and responsive to the drawings. Center road coming through Castle Plumbing and the project site. Now, as you know, we've submitted and maintained that the center road is in conformance with the stipulation of settlement that was approved by the court, albeit we have made strides in that area. So we have now included in the proposal the West Road alternative. So we've shifted the road 25 feet to the west on Conga property. Same potential impacts, impervious fill, stormwater, site disturbance as analyzed in the FSEIS. It is not that different than the concept shown to Planning Board in fall 2017, but fully engineered at this point. It is the preferred, it is the preferred alternative. We have had extensive discussions with Conga and new attorney that they brought on. We are very, very close to an agreement with them on accepting the West Road alternative, and the engineering and design, Castle Plumbing, we're waiting for a response from their attorney. Again, I'm pretty confident to say we will have an agreement with them on this alternative road. This is the preferred. The only reason the center road is still in your package, that we made very clear to them if for any reason we couldn't come to an agreement on the West Road alternative, then we would finally, in the final site plan approval, ask for the center road to be approved. Again, both are fully engineered in the drawings, subject to the latest comment letter, but we think we're in a good place, and that's the road. That would mean demolishing their building. They may move that building, they may not. That will be subject to an independent application from them, site plan application, but it will be raised to FEMA standards. It will be improved. All the curb cuts are shown in the plans, all the stormwater, all the drainage, all the culverts, boxes and alike are fully engineered in that plan. So I think that issue is hopefully going to go away. That's something we worked very hard on. We've had about 4 iterations and negotiations with them. As I mentioned before, we have updated the SWIP and no significant adverse drainage impacts, as we've shown in the engineering plans. with the building alternatives alike. Again, we revised the draft FSEIS. We met, spent a considerable amount of time with staff discussing that and discussing the framework for that and the context. And I think it was, both of us agreed that the baseline was the 2013 SEIS. That was the last secret document that was approved by the board. So our charge was to look at what was approved in 2013 and then look at the quote-unquote project refinements, the elimination of 3-bedroom, elimination of secondary emergency access, revised building footprint, the bump out, the West Road alternative, and prior demolition of the mill building, and to analyze to what extent those changes caused any significant environmental impacts that weren't previously examined. And as you could see, and I'm sure you've seen when you went through the document, we went through every chapter and updated the FEIS on land use and zoning, demographics, all the traditional FSEIS. We've done this once or twice, and we were very diligent in making sure that our consultants included all the information you need to take the necessary hard look under SECRA and to show that the changes that were made since 2013 did not in themselves cause any significant potential adverse impacts. We looked at stormwater, we looked at traffic, we looked at visuals, and alike. And that was our conclusion. We also included a comparative chart that showed the evolution of the project from 2008 DIS to 2013 SEIS to the current project within the context of SECRA. So, with respect to the 736 variance required as to whether this was the dedicated road, village dedicated road, I guess it would be fair to state we've exchanged a number of correspondence and communications with your council. Not speaking for him, I'm very capable. The sense I got is we are agree to disagree on that issue. We believe that the road satisfies the two tests, is of sufficient legal character. If you blow the official tax map up, you see North Water Street, you see the street. It would also be suitably improved as shown on the site plans. We think we satisfy both of those prongs. There is disagreement to that, and this will not be the first time that parties during the SECRA site plan process may have disagreed on something like that. We are, if we are unable to resolve this, which I'm not sure we will, then what the normal process would be is we would probably have to go to the building inspector for a formal opinion, interpretation on that. And once he makes the interpretation, if it's contrary to what we've said, then we would have to go to the ZBA for an interpretation of that decision. And if we're unable to obtain such a favorable interpretation, then we would likely have to go through the ZBA process, and we would do that right there. But we do feel that we've satisfied it, and again, this would be typical, a condition of approval, similar to many other involved agency approvals that SECRA works. You get your approval and your findings here, and an issue such as this would be subject to us either going for a variance or getting an opinion, and that's how it works under SECRA, because we couldn't even get a formal ruling from the ZBA, as your counsel will tell you, until you, as a lead agency, issued your SECRA findings. So, as I said before, we have spent, in this submission, we know the long history of this case. I think all your staff will concede that you know, we put in a submission, we did it right. I mean, we pulled everything together. We heard the comments both in written and verbally at the staff meeting. We did what we needed to do under SECRA. As anyone knows, under SECRA, the FEIS is not supposed to be, need not be a perfect quote-unquote document. The rule of reason under SECRA provides for the amount of detail commensurate with the application. We're not saying our application is perfect, or that SECRA document, but we would submit it is unquestionably complete for the purposes of moving forward on the document. There may be some changes. That's the normal process. We would submit that also the site plan is complete enough to open the public hearings, and we would be happy to also, even though it's not required under SECRA, to include the FSEIS in the public hearing. So any comments that are made on the public, on the FSEIS in the public hearing with the site plan, we would then go back and modify them prior to any findings being made on the FEIS. The comments that we received today, we all received on the engineering. Again, we would submit, if you read them, that these are really mostly technical comments. They're really not major, significant, outstanding issues or completeness. There was a lot of clarification. There was a lot of showing where certain alignments are. There was aligning stairways, provide pipe metal material, need a particular easement in this area, level of the lights needed to be adjusted. Mostly technical comments. I'm assuming that the FSEIS is ready for at least public hearing. We did not receive any material comments on that. Again, we made sure we got our application in by the submission date on the 9th. And I'm assuming that if we didn't get any major comments on that it's at least sufficient to open it to the public, which, you know, you'd like to do as soon as possible, and combine it with the site plan and start getting those comments. Again, there's no need to close that public hearing immediately, and, you know, the standards are that these don't have to be perfect documents, but I think clearly the applicant has satisfied their obligations with this board. We worked very, very, very hard to give you the type of submission that will allow this application to move forward and in a responsible and informed manner. I mean, that was our job, and I think we did it. So that's the ask for tonight, and I just open it to questions. Obviously, this would be some of the activities that would happen after that SECRA findings. We have village board on a couple of items, and then a ZBA interpretation or a variance that couldn't happen until SECRA was completed.
Okay.
So,
Thank you.
thank you.
So, board, any questions? How about we-
Well, yeah, I think there are a few questions, but I think it is a run-up or a primer to potentially advancing the document is complete and begin the public hearing process. I think it's a fair statement. I think your statement that the largest group of questions have been asked, captured, and answered. Whether we agree with the answers or not, in my opinion, much of that is post-acceptance to the scoping of the document into the public hearing. And as long as you understand, as long as you and the team understand that that's at least my experience, and I feel like the fair experience. This application has unique gravity to it, right? And there are several cores to it. And one of the cores, I feel, obviously, is the access road, right? And And that has consumed a lot of oxygen in the room, right? And normally, there may be a more balanced discussion as a project approaches this milestone. In this instance, I think it's fair to say, much of that dialogue has been more about the access road than other normal planning, good planning notions that we really haven't gotten to in it. So if as the applicant you recognize we're going, at some point we need to get to those elements. And as Joe suggested, there's an end game, specifically in the architectural component. I still think there's a lot of ground to cover there. Is the scoping and the material provided enough foundation for that discussion in the next phase? Perhaps. I'm willing to admit that. But I'm also willing I feel like it's important to confirm the fact that we're at this threshold, and I see my colleague out there for the first night, and which is unusual. So there's another unusual element to this in terms of sequence and team building and information providing and the consistency of the information to get to the end game. I think there are a few areas that, without drilling into them tonight, they're going to benefit you, and you know these. They're going to benefit you at the public hearing stage. And it's probably behooving for you and all of us, when we get to that thing, to be equally prepared as you've prepared for tonight, or at least this interim submission. And I'll leave it at that. Next.
That's a cliffhanger.
Right,
I mean, I'd like to maybe add on to that or go from there. There will be a lot of questions. I have definitely questions about, the road access, the issue of that it's going to be in a floodplain. There are a number of, you're going to have underground parking that will be in the floodplain. There's going to be a lot of questions about that. And I see nodding, I'm seeing no heads. But it is still something that you will be questioned about by people.
And by this board?
And by this board.
And by the?
And by this board.
Yes.
Yeah. There's also the issue of, the architectural components that are being proposed, and how developed are they? There's a big give that you can make. I don't know what the project cost is, but I have some sense of what it would cost to do this whole thing. And that little give is very small in comparison to the investment that you are putting into here. And that is maybe meeting some of the preservation people halfway and saying, is there a way that the office building can be preserved? Is there a way to create a nonprofit entity that you are playing into that actually makes the effort to move this building to higher ground, to a different spot? I think that, politically, community-wise, would make your proposal and this project go down much easier. This is just one of my thoughts in terms, and I have talked to a lot of people about it, whether they would be willing to take part in that. I've asked people frankly, if Hidden Cove is coming out and saying, we're going to make a joint effort to do this, would you put time, effort, and money into creating a fund? And people say yes. They actually say yes, I would love to do that if we can save that building. And I think it would be a fantastic gesture also for the project. I think you would have a lot of roadblocks just be flattened out. In terms of what it does to topography, in the plans presented here, I know they're somewhat preliminary. I really would like to see many more sections on the impact of the 13 and 14-foot walls at different, sections, different directions, so we can see how it really relates to the existing landscape, topography, and buildings that are your immediate neighbors. I think that is an illustration that needs to be there to really understand how it can, how it can fit in, how can it grow in and grow together, and how will landscaping form that, and over how long do you expect that will happen before it's a natural blending. I think all of those issues are very political, and I think the answers can be technical and community oriented, and I think you would be really well advised to go in that direction, and I think you would have a much more open audience.
What she said.
Excuse me? I mean, I'm listening, I'm taking notes, and I'll see where we end up, and then I'll respond.
In light of the hour, I'm gonna just kind of hold my comments till.
Yeah, just one small thing, just, I know the Calvert Sessions comments, a lot of those you mentioned being technical, but I think some of the things that go to a public hearing, that are gonna be of interest that the public has a chance to see visually and reflect upon. So I know like one of the comments was to clarify whether there'll be sidewalks along both sides of the proposed access road in certain areas. So to have all that fleshed out so the public can visually see that and envision that. So, but I'll just go from there.
I have nothing to add, Joe.
So I've got a couple. One is, I want to understand something you said earlier about the, I forget which chart it was on, but it has to do with apparently the outcome of the court case with respect to access. What exactly was the outcome of that court case?
The court case found that the easement that was provided where the center road was planned along in the Conga Territory was a valid easement. Now, their contention, I'm going to be,
I'm okay with that.
Okay.
Because I think from what you just said, settles for me that easements are granted over people's private property. Therefore, in my mind, this is not a village street. So, based on that, I think your conclusion to go to the Board of Zoning Appeals is correct. I am not interested in debating that anymore. I don't really care how your west or center road gets there. I'm okay as long as the engineers are okay with that. But I have decided, based on what you told me tonight, that there is no village street after a few hundred feet in from our pump station, or wherever that is. The rest of that is all easement driven. That's my view. So you can take that for what you'd like, if you want to get it out of the way and say, all right, that's one for the Board of Zoning Appeals, we move on. The second thing is that it's, and I understand what you're trying to say on page PD5 and PD4, but I want you to be very clear that not only is the plateau not in any way involved in this application, that there's no, it's not related to density, it's a separate parcel. Is that a true statement, or are we counting for the 138 units plateau acreage?
Absolutely not. No.
Okay.
You saw 8 heads, so no.
I just want it to be very clear, and it's not, because when I look at the table on PD4, not clear to me, and when I read 5, still not true. It just says, it's not being developed at this time. That doesn't tell me that
It's not being included in the
some other
coverage.
neighbor's property.
Can I just clarify? I think there was a statement in, what the booklet is the pages of the, I'm going to simplify and call it the FEIS, to which changes are now being made. The booklet is not the whole FEIS. The whole FEIS is contained on the disc in the inside cover of the booklet. So that's the clarity. But I think in the change volume, it does not say, I do not believe it says that land, and I think it's called Lot 5, which is the plateau, is being implicated in the sense that a cut that is going to happen. I think this booklet states that a cut that is going to happen
Right, it's
for
gonna
the
be
road
affected.
is going to affect that lot.
But
So I think that lot is implicated in the application in the sense that development is proposed on it, a cut,
Since they are
some
separate.
kind of a grading.
Since they're separate parcels.
So we're going, one of the things we have to sort out is,
There'll be
is
some,
that being
even
included
though
in
they're
this
owned by the same
application?
person,
I-
there'll be
I-
some easement that lets you go do that.
Yeah, for the findings and the like,
There's
I think
gotta be
is,
some formal paperwork that says,
Correct.
even though they own it today, they're gonna go chop it up. There should be some historic record that says if it ever gets sold to somebody else, that that's still a true statement. We should treat that as an easement just like every other one.
I think it is being proposed that there will be some effect on the site plan of that lot, to wit, a grading issue.
and
a cut.
I think to
And that
Joe's
will have
point,
to
that
be-
would have to be memorialized in the easement in perpetuity, so that access cut runs with the land if that lot is ever.
Yeah, and I don't know that that's been clarified before, that lot is in that sense part of this application. It's one of the things we have to sort out.
But not for coverage purposes.
Then
Apparently not.
I have a different perspective of public amenities than perhaps you do. Because there are some things that just have to happen as part of the site development. A sidewalk is not an amenity that's valuable to the people who are gonna live there, not necessarily the people who live on Justin Drive in Austin. So I think you have to think about, in this particular ordinance, there's sort of things you have to do for the site. Like you have to get sewer and water there. That's not a public amenity. Sidewalk, not a public amenity. Paving the street, not a public amenity. But what is the return that the ordinance specifically asks for from this project to the community at large? For example, you know, I don't think you all sat through the meetings earlier, but we saw fairly large blocks of land that were gonna be turned into conservation areas, that would be maintained and owned by the development, but accessed by the public. That would be realistic. I think earlier on, there was a discussion about creating a parking lot at the end of the street, right? Those are sort of, in my mind, what public benefit means.
I hear.
Okay, and it does talk about off-site and on-site capital or municipal infrastructure projects. I don't see that clearly defined here. Going on to page P19, leads. You gotta pick one. Okay, because I don't know how, at the end of the day, since the building will be built and the bonuses will be offered before the building is up, and if you don't meet it, what do we do? Nail the door shut? So we need some concrete, this is how we're gonna meet this, and these are the objectives that we're gonna meet. And I also want to draw a distinction between, you know, valuable to the community and valuable as a rental, as a selling point, et cetera, right? Because people want to buy things that are going to be efficient and green. So there's Walter would point out, there's a marketing element as well as an environmental benefit to the community, and there's a balance test to that. That will weigh into the deliberation of the number of units, because we really didn't get there.
Well,
And
now
I
you're
think
making me a
that's
little
John-
nervous, because I have my list and that's one of them.
That's
and I
John,
thought
and I
we
think
were
that's John's point, but I'm not gonna dwell, nobody's here tonight's gonna talk about that.
All right.
But I just wanna make sure that, you know, I do get those 4 or 5 things out that have been sort of on my mind from the beginning, and I'm glad tonight we at least decided we don't have to discuss access anymore. I'm done.
Wait, have we decided that?
Have we?
Well, I don't
I'm
know.
not sure we have.
Look, if I have said that it's not a village street, I don't know what you guys think, but when I say that, and they say, okay, yeah, they want to go to the Board of Zoning Appeals, that settles that problem.
Joe, do you mean, just to clarify, am I correct that what you're saying is we don't have to debate the issue of whether they need the 736 zoning board?
No, right.
From the site plan standpoint, you're looking at the
Right.
physical aspects
Right.
of the road.
It can be a condition of approval. We have to satisfy one or the other.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, looking for a smile. I'm waiting over there.
So Jim,
Procedurally, so I want to back up a little. I've said already that I'm going to simplify it and not use the letters SEIS, but you'll know that's what I mean when I say FEIS.
I know.
So in seeker, just to reset the bidding here, where we are is we're in the process of the preparation of an FEIS. A DEIS, actually a supplemental DEIS, was prepared. It was accepted as complete for public comment. Public comment occurred, this all goes back to 2013, and then from that, the next step was to prepare an FEIS, and that's the process we're in and have been in since that time. So what you have before you, the disk, inside this document, is the FEIS. I want to make sure we're not conflating two things. There's no reason why you can't have a public hearing on this draft if you want to. As Mr. Sarin has properly pointed out, that's actually not in the secret law. Some boards do it. But it's important to recognize that the concept of the DEIS concept, remember, we're in an FEIS, of the standard being the document is complete in the sense that it's sufficient for public review, is not the standard for an FEIS. When we get to it, the FEIS is not something that you're accepting as complete for public review. You might decide to do that, but in the procedures in the secret law, an FEIS is a document that you are issuing as a board. It's different from a DEIS in that in a DEIS, every assertion made is not deemed to be the assertion of the board. The words of an FEIS are deemed to be the assertions of the board, and therefore, boards have to be sure that when an FEIS is issued, that the assertions are their assertions, that they agree, though it's been drafted by another, that they agree with what's being said. So I just want to be sure that I want to be sure what we're talking about first. Are we talking about taking this draft of an FEIS and putting it out for a public hearing to further inform you as to what you'll want to do about ultimately issuing it? Or are we talking about actually the issuance of it by the board, in which case we would want to be very certain that everything that is said in the document that's on the disk is your assertion, unless it's clearly stated that it's not your assertion, that you're simply acknowledging an opinion of the applicant. So in order to do that, the reviews have to be done. And I certainly agree that terrific progress has been made, a terrific effort has been made since we had our meeting and talked about all the things that need to be done. But I think the planning review, the professional planning review of the document, I'm not certain that that's complete yet, but ultimately what has to happen is you all have to go through it with the advice of your consultants and be on board that, okay, we are ready to issue this document because what it says, we say. And that, I agree with Mr. Zarin, that doesn't mean the words have to be perfect. It doesn't mean that it has to be to some ultimate level of technical sufficiency, but you got to agree with it. Or
or it would be fair for the applicant to say at some later date, it was in the FEIS, you as a board said it, so that's the rule of the case. So I just want to be sure that that's where we are. Is the planning review, internal planning review complete? Are all your comments in? That's when it's time to issue an FEIS. Now, whether, if it's proposed that what we're talking about is take the draft before we get to that step and put it up as part of a public hearing, I have no objection to that, as long as everybody understands we're not taking the step, unless we intend to, of actually issuing it as a board.
I understood that was your ask.
Yes, let me clarify that. I do agree, Mr. Stout's characterization of this. I guess just one small deviation, I would put more weight on the findings with respect to the finishing the secret process. The findings is your document. The findings should have your voice. The findings takes your compilation of the DEIS and the information that's in the FEIS, and in your resolution articulates how you've reconciled those impacts and where you've concluded those impacts are and the mitigations. I do agree with Jim that from a secret perspective, the FEIS is typically considered the document, the final document, and the document of the board, in the extent that the information that's in there should be accurate, should be complete. You should rely on in your findings, except for often if there is a difference, what we'll say, and we did try to say that in the document where we said the applicant maintains. So that's the board saying in the FEIS, this is the applicant talking doesn't mean we've accepted that. So at this juncture, I want to move this forward. I mean, I think that's everyone's goal here. And I think the best way, the most efficient, effective way to moving that forward is to open the hearing at the next meeting. You don't have to formally, I'm all right if you don't formally, quote unquote, issue the FEIS. I would have liked to. We got it in by the 9th because we wanted comments on it. We haven't gotten those yet. There may be some issues, as Mr. Stout says, that upon analysis may have some question with, but I'd rather at this point hold the public hearing, let the FEIS be up for discussion by your board, by the public, as a draft, the site plan be up for as a draft. If it would help in response to your comment, May 9th is the submission date. If you would like, we can address whatever comments we get before the 9th and have those clarified in the plan, so the public has answers to some of these questions, and we'll have some of these for the May 22nd hearing. That will give you even more clarification and more, but I think we're at the point where we should get the public comment, we should get your comments, your substantive comments, and then we'll have all the comments before us, and we will do a final. I mean, this has been extremely productive. We've gotten comments, don't necessarily agree with all of them, and we can have some back and forth, but certainly we're getting some direct feedback, important feedback.
I think I'd like to take 5 minutes with our special counsel, just to make sure I understand the roadmap forward. Is that okay with you?
Sure, and here
Right
it's...
this meeting, that's right.
So do you want to...
We can move.
Oh, you mean executive session?
So, well, I would say advice of counsel.
Advice of counsel, not executive session.
Take a break for advice of counsel?
Correct.
Okay, there'll be no deliberation here, this will just be legal advice.
Right. All right, thank you. We'll reconvene. So, thank you for the very detailed presentation tonight. clarified a number of things that are on your mind. I think you also got a number of comments which are yet to be addressed. But in the spirit of moving forward, we'd like to move forward with a hearing on the draft SFEIS at the next meeting, so that we can entertain any public comment that might arise and give our own inside consultants some opportunity to inform us and the public as well.
So, I think, to clarify, the board is, correct me if I'm wrong, the board is not issuing it at this point as a board, but is setting a public hearing on the draft of the SFEIS to take public comment. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
And is the board combining that with a public hearing on the site plan?
We'll certainly discuss it, but I think that we have spent so much time on road access, et cetera, that we need some time to really review the site.
If that's the case, can I make a request? I hear you in that, and I heard you on the architectural. And I would like to propose, perhaps before May 22nd, before the hearing, ask the board whether they would be willing to do a work session with us, where we literally put the plans on the tables. It's a common practice, many planning boards. Let's talk architectural, let's talk site plan, let's really have a detailed feedback. And it's typically noticed as a public meeting, special public meeting. Or the public typically doesn't talk, but it won't start at 10 p.m. hopefully, and we can hear the comments on architecture and final site plan, and I think it would be valuable. We'll have a two-way exchange. We'll bring consultants, you'll bring consultants, and we'll finish.
I mean, at some point, we're gonna have to do that anyway, but I'm not sure the two are connected.
To what?
Ultimately, the hearing of the FEIS and the site plan. I mean, in fact, is in my own mind, I really want to know what I've agreed to before I actually look at, the height, the elevation, et cetera.
Well,
let me not speak for the board.
I would almost submit there's a little bit of reverse in that, because the FEIS really is the document that has to.
Oh, it's true, that's exactly right, but we don't have public comment until we meet on the 22nd, right?
Right.
We don't have feedback, official feedback from our staff until the 22nd. So we could have a work session, but it's probably not going to come to anything until we do all that. I mean, first of all, we could probably try to find a day to sit down and do that. Because, I mean, it's eventual anyway. I mean, you're right, I agree, we're not gonna do this site plan at a public meeting. When there's 16 other things on the agenda.
Exactly, it's hard to get into the detail that you want to engage us in.
And we should figure out how to do that. But I don't know if we can make your date or not, but we'll look to see. And I don't even know if we have everything we need.
Technically, do we have the time sequence to establish a public hearing on?
Do we have enough time?
22nd? I believe we do. I'll check our own copy, I believe we do.
Absolutely.
Okay.
In terms of notice and everything.
I mean,
Right, by the time you have.
Second, be sure to.
It's 14 days.
We don't need that for the work session.
I mean, I think it's important to also lay out what, to the public, so they understand what it is that's being discussed. And I think it will, some people will say, we don't like this architect, or we don't like the project. So I think it's important that we separate the two, so that it doesn't become an issue of what they don't like to see, but that it's the meat underneath it that is being discussed.
Well, if you're saying to us, look, we really need to hear from the public on the FEIS, then we would respectfully submit the public needs to weigh in on the site plan also. They're they're completely related. And to open up a public hearing on a site plan doesn't mean you're closing it on the site plan, you're getting the input that you want from the public on the site plan. There's an axiom in this, is you try to open the public hearing as soon as possible when you have enough information that the public can understand what they're looking at, which I respectfully, we've provided you.
Well, it's a noble notion, and one I think we recognize. But I feel like there's a reality to trying to grasp all of that and facilitate it simultaneously with public comment.
I'm sorry, I'm missing that.
I just think if we try to run both concurrent, the reality is we're gonna get bogged down.
But the problem in running them separately is you'll have an FEIS that's looking at the impacts. It's looking at the impacts of the project. If the project gets modified because you've all decided you want to change the architecture, or you want to add a certain amenity or other things.
And I understand those principles and agree, right? But
run parallel.
This project is unique among the unique in terms of its trajectory, in terms of its path, in terms of where the energy and resources have previously been applied and where they haven't been applied. So I don't know that you can take your observations and cast them about uniformly over what that process is going to be, because some of it, quite frankly, is.
I don't think the board has a comfort level to go forward with that. And so, we're happy to entertain, I think, a work session if we can do it, but, and we want the public comment. If you want, you asked for the 22nd. We can talk site plan at the next meeting, and then in June we'll see what we can wind up with. So, it's a yes or no.
What?
But really it is.
Well, so let me spat a little.
Well, that's what I was trying to.
We make a submission. We make a submission by the submission date. Let me go back, because I do want to acknowledge this project has had a history not like a lot of other projects. Right? So we acknowledge that. We've got site plan where there's been emphasis on the road, maybe not the rest of the site plan. We've got an EIS, an FEIS that's been out there since 2013. There've been submissions, but they really weren't looked at because we were stalled on the site plan. What I'm trying to do is bring this back into the normal process. I'm trying to bring the site plan and the FEIS back together, as they have to go forward together. So that's what I'm trying to do. So when I said, let's do a public hearing, you want public comment, we want public comment, let's have it on both. We've made submissions on the site plan. We've made good site plan submissions. We've made real site. There may still be outstanding issues, and we're open to those. And we want to engage them. We made a submission hoping we would get back, and we did get some feedback from you all today, which was very valuable. If you don't want to hold the public hearing on May 22nd, for whatever reason, for both of them, then let's commit to a work session before the 22nd. Let's work on the architecture. Let's find out what, if any, comments there are in the EIS, on the FEIS. Let's work on whatever site plan comments there are on the site plan. Let's put out the plans. Consultants will have an opportunity to look at them. They've had an opportunity to look at them. They've had 2.5 weeks. We've made our submissions on your date that you asked us to. We were there till 3:15 in the morning, the day before, getting these submissions out to you. I think they are complete. I agree with what Mr. Stout said. They were an effort. We've got to bring these two processes together, or we're not going to get to the end game, respectfully. So if there's still issues that you're uncomfortable with in that site plan, I understand what you're saying, then let's hold a work session as soon as possible.
and I think we have agreed to that. But I also think that at least a few of my comments directly affect your site plan. So we've already had part of this discussion. John said we were going to.
Yeah, but we-
go
but-
past it.
but-
So I'm okay.
It's hard to get it
So-
piecemeal.
So you, well, unfortunately, that's how things work.
Careful, don't.
But,
don't run
so,
down
so
that
I
road.
think, so the answer is we've agreed to the 22nd for a hearing on the draft. And we've agreed we're gonna hold a work session. I don't know that we can figure that out tonight,
Before the 22nd.
but I would like to do that.
Okay, great.
But I can't commit to that, but we're gonna see what we can do.
Can I just ask a reconsideration of, in the same vein that we're accepting that the FEIS is a draft EIS for the purposes of getting public comment, that we do the same thing with the site plan?
I don't think we can do that, because we have not, in this board, actually discussed this. We have waited because we always thought and always talked about that the whole access was the issue that we had to get, cleared first. Because if there was no access, then we wouldn't have a plan. So we need time. I definitely feel that we need time to sit down and really study this from an architectural point of view, from all the angles that it has to be. So to me, it's not, we've sort of been stuck in the driveway, so to speak, literally, actually. So I think we need to have that time. We as a board need to have the time to talk amongst us, to look at it. And I agree, we should have a session with you so we can have more questions and answers that might be answered right away. But out of that session, there might be things that will be coming that we need to have in order to present to the public.
Okay,
And I think, casting the notion that we're compartmentalizing this or piecemealing it is really unfair. I'm talking about toward your notion that, and Joe's, that there's an end game here, and get some order in this and some momentum. Perhaps there's a sequence, a logical sequence that benefits that notion. Not this, let's just run it all out there. I don't even think, I'm not even sure I agree that it's in your best benefit to do that.
You know, with withdrawn, and it certainly wasn't meant in a pejorative sense, and I think the work session would be extremely valuable to all of us. Let's sit down and
All right. There's
give
some
us that
staff work.
input that,
There's some staff work that's gonna happen, I think you guys have already agreed to that, and then we'll see what we can come up with over the next couple of weeks.
all right.
Okay, so with that, we'll adjourn this for tonight. Do we need a motion to,
Excuse me, is there an opportunity for comment?
To what? School district.
Sure.
Yes. Good evening again. Carrie Ann Tondo Vingerman Smith on behalf of the Ossining Union Free School District. Thank you for the opportunity to speak on this matter. At this time, the school district is unaware of any notifications provided to the school district regarding this proposed project at its inception in 2008 or any time thereafter in 2013. But I submit, notwithstanding, even if such notification was provided, that much has changed within the school district landscape and the Ossining Union Free School District in particular since 10 years ago, 5 years ago, or even this year. On behalf of the school district, I want to make it clear that the impacts to the school district, its educational operations, finances, and any costs associated with their facilities as a result of projected enrollment of students must be carefully, adequately evaluated during this process to protect and preserve the educational operations of the school district and the opportunities for its students. I submit, in hearing the conversation going on, that the draft FEIS has yet to be released. I don't believe that May 22nd is adequate time for the school district to review that document, complete its analysis, determine whether or not there's an impact, and then come before you on May 22nd with comments. I don't think that's adequate time of the project of this nature. In addition, during that time period, you may or may not be aware, the school district budget vote happens on May 15th, so the next several weeks are somewhat very compressed for the school district. That being said, the comments and the concerns that I've raised are certainly not any different than comments you've heard before. As I said earlier, on a different project relative to the school district's concerns, which have consistently been shared with this board as well as the village. And with that being said, we respectfully request that any notification on this draft FEIS be presented to the school district as an interested and impacted party to this process, and that a full opportunity to be heard and ample time to be heard be given to the school district.
Okay.
Thank you for your time again.
Anyone else come to speak tonight? No. If not, we'll adjourn.
Why don't we just, I think, Jim, might it be appropriate if we just, if there's a formal motion to schedule the public hearing on the 22nd with regard to the draft DEIS?
Yeah, I think the chair, I think that motion was on the floor.
I've started to.
Okay.
I forgot about that. Okay, so is there a motion to, okay, Jeff, Mike?
I'll second.
All in favor? Carried, we're good. And we have 3 minutes. So, everybody was here till last meeting. Anybody have their name misspelled or anything? Mike, you good?
I didn't read the contract, sorry.
We did a second. All in